Good. What's wrong? Your microphone good? In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board, town hall, and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. August 21st, 2023.
Ashley Armstrong? Here. Sandra Bernani?
Here.
Gary Roseman?
Here.
Regina Truitt?
Here.
Here.
Rick
Here. We're open this evening with approval of minutes of 8/7/23. As those were circulated, are any corrections or changes to those minutes? Who's eligible to vote on that?
Ashley was the only one not there.
Okay, so everyone else is good to go. Any corrections or changes from anyone that was there? In that case, can I have a motion
Motion to approve the minutes for August 7th, 2023.
and a second?
1 second.
Thank you, Regina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, we have two memorializations this evening. First up, we have calendar 39/28/23, Ricky Liswan, 52 Greenwood Drive in Milburn. Who's eligible on that one?
Chandra, Regina, Joseph, Frank.
Okay, so sure, great. Any corrections or changes on that memorialization? If not, can I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt 3928-23.
Thank you. In a second.
1 second.
Chandra Bernani?
Yes.
Regina Truitt?
Yes.
Joseph Caulfield?
Yes.
Rick Whitman.
Yes. Next up, we have calendar 39/32/23, Mega Mahajan 130 Highland Avenue, Short Hills. Who do we have on that one?
Same.
Okay. If there are any corrections or changes, can I have a motion from one of those?
I'll make a motion to approve calendar number 3932-23.
Thank
I
you.
can second.
Thank you, Chandra.
Chandra Bernani?
Yes.
Regina Truitt?
Yes.
Joseph Caulfield?
Yes.
Rick Whitman.
Yes. Start applications this evening with calendar 39/29/23, 121 Highland Avenue, gross care of Arturo Palumbo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here for to seek
So-
relief.
so, who-
I guess I have to swear.
Or who are you? Let's start with
My
that.
name is Art Palumbo, Arturo Palumbo. I'm an architect registered in New Jersey since 1988. And I have,
Yeah, I was just swear you in.
You swear from testimony about the given tonight, swearing to be the truth, whole truth, and so forth. Now, state your name, and then you can.
all right, fair enough. Arturo Palumbo. I'm an architect licensed in New Jersey since 1988, and I have presented before this board before.
Is your license currently in good standing, your license?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Your qualifications are accepted.
I also have my client here, and you might want to swear her in.
Mrs.
if there
Gross,
are
will
any
you be speaking this
questions.
evening?
Pardon?
Will you be speaking this evening?
Yeah.
Then why don't you stand on up and we'll swear you in real quick.
You swear from testimony about the given tonight, swearing to be the truth, whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Just state your name and then
Kathleen Bruce.
and just state your name. You got your address, please.
Oh, 121 Highland Avenue in Short Hills.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for hearing us tonight. We're here for the restoration and repair of an existing pool house located at 121 Highland Avenue in Short Hills. We're seeking relief from a front yard variance issue. We're on a corner lot, and the pool house existing is considered in the front yard. It's 40.83 feet from the property line where 100 feet is required. It's our intent not to change the building footprint at all, but to upgrade it and make it more compatible with the existing house, which is a turn of the last century Tudor revival house in the historic district. We presented our designs to the HPC on the 4th of May of this year, and it was approved unanimously. by that board. It's our intent, well, let's see here, I guess. You've seen the drawings. I don't know where I want to start with this, but effectively,
Yeah, why don't you give the board and the public just an overview of the
Okay.
drawings that have been submitted? And do you have any additional drawings or exhibits that you haven't submitted?
I don't.
Okay.
and PDF copies were submitted 2 weeks ago, I guess. So the building footprint is not to change. The gross changes to the structure would occur mostly to the interior, reorganization of the spaces and upgrade of those spaces. The building itself is a circa 1960, 70 structure, and as some doctors might say, unremarkable. So we really want to make it more compatible with the neighborhood and with the house, the main house on the property. To that degree, on the exterior of the building, we want to raise the roof pitches to make them match or to approximate the roof pitches on the main house and to make it much more viable in terms of shedding water. In its current layout, there's a main gable that runs front to back with 2 flanking wings on either side, and those are flat roofs. And I want to introduce gable roofs that intercepted perpendicularly, I suppose, which you may be able to see on sheet A3. The raised roof on the structure is within the allowable building heights for an accessory structure. So we're not introducing any other issues to the project in that way. The cladding on the outside of the building is going to be cement stucco with new windows and doors that are more suitable and will reflect the main house. The roof will be clad in Ludovici clay tile, which is what's found on the main house as well. I think that's a real brief synopsis, but if you have other questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Why don't you go over what you're actually here for? Like what the variances you're seeking?
It's one issue. It's a front yard encroachment. On the last sheet of my presentation package is a site plan. And in it, you'll see that we're on the corner of Highland Avenue and Western Drive. And because of that, we have 2 front yards on this property. The zoning requires a 100-foot buffer from the front yard to the front yard setback to the property line. We are currently at 40.43 feet. That is not changing. That's an existing non-conforming condition. And that's really our only issue that we have to present to the board for relief.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, it's not that it just can't exceed the front plane of the house, which varies from property to property, so it's not just that it has to be. So that's why I just wanted to.
Wait, explain that, Eileen.
The corner lot accessory structure has to be, it can't be any closer to the street than the required front yard setback or the front end of the house, which is set further to the opposite side. So the fact that it's already there, the fact that it's being raised per se, but we're doing outside modifications.
I think the ordinance reads that it's either of those, whichever is the more acute of the 2 conditions.
What is the, so I'm looking at the Mike Lonzafamo plan, which is the last sheet.
Mhm.
And it shows, I guess, to the left front of the proposed building, I don't know, is that a porch? What is that? That there's a,
Two black
You mean
dash.
front facing Stewart, you mean?
yeah,
Or-
well,
It's actually
facing
Western.
Yeah, it's
Stewart
Western,
Road
yeah.
or Western Drive, whatever it is. It looks like, is it a porch? What is that?
No, so that's, if you were to look at, let's see, the photograph on 4 or to my second drawing, which is on 2, sorry. That's a mechanical room. That's an existing structure, an existing mechanical room.
Is that being altered at all?
No, we're changing out, we're updating the mechanical equipment within it, but we're not changing that in any appreciable way, the footprint staying the same, et cetera. So,
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience in regards to this application? Questions only? Any comments from the audience regarding this application? Anything else?
I will say that, let's see here. I may need my glasses for this. So Barton Ross, the town preservation architects, had said under his recommendations that the pool house renovation should make the accessory structure a better match with the historic architecture, steeper roof pitch and traditional materials of the main house, and would be a vast improvement over the existing building.
Was that submitted as part of the application?
No, it was never.
But that was presented to the, that was the HPC comments that may have been presented to the board, but I don't know.
Yeah, we can see memorialization.
We don't have memorialization, because we were supposed to memorialize that for August meeting, which was canceled.
Got it.
They canceled it. So I believe that's why, I didn't want to hold this up for, this has been scheduled for a while, and I was assuming that I would have the resolution, but they canceled the meeting, so it was not memorialized.
So that meeting was held the 4th of May.
Got it.
This year.
So I'm just gonna ask, regardless of the outcome on this application, if one or both of you can work to get to me the HPC recommendation, memorialization, whatever.
By all means, yes. Thank you, Eileen.
Anything further?
I think that sums it up. I don't want to belabor the point.
Sure. In that case, that closed the hearing for public comment. Any on board, do you have any comments for this application?
Look, I think it's probably an upgrade to make it look more like the house. The existing pool house does not look particularly attractive. That this likely will be an improvement. And there don't really seem to be any substantive changes to certainly the footprint. The roof height is within regulation anyway, so I'm supportive of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'd say it's probably about the 50s or 60s or something like that. I said it definitely needs refreshing. I think this would bring it up to date. And, we have a lot of anomalies in this town in terms of location of things. As probably Western didn't exist or something didn't exist at the time this house was built. So, the street gets cut through and next thing you know, your backyard's your front yard. So I think I would definitely support this application.
Goodness. I know this house is very beautiful, beautiful home. It's beautifully landscaped as well. You can't really see the pool from the street. Pool house. That's on my dog walking route. And I would support this application. It's a modest ask and it's existing. Footprint.
Do I have a motion in this case?
Make a motion to approve this application.
One second.
Second.
Gary.
Ashley Abington?
Yes.
Roger Gonzalez?
Yes.
Gary Rosen?
Yes.
Virginia Truitt?
Yes.
Joseph Caulfield?
Yes.
Craig Thomas?
Yes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Next, we move on to calendar 39/30/23, 6 River Lane, May and Matt Choi. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Do you have a line to go? A big line to go?
Yeah, a little schnauzer.
I messed up. You see? I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple of months ago, he was here and whole staple, or the whole, all the sheets fell off of my board. So I stapled them together. And I forgot to staple one sheet into the mess. That's what's going on. But I can start if you want me to.
Go ahead, let's swear you in. And
Yes, the owner is here, and I also have a planner.
is he going to testify?
Yes.
Come on up. Let's swear you all in. Shot here.
Everyone just raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm testimony that you're giving tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Your names for records, spelling your name, please.
Timothy Klesse, Klesse.
Alexander Dougherty, Dougherty.
Matthew Choi, CHOY.
All right, Tim, we'll qualify you now, Mr. Dougherty. When you come up, we'll qualify you as well, okay?
Just before we start, Mr. Klesse, Mr. Doherty, I'm sure you have told your client, if you haven't, I'm bringing it to your attention now, we only have 6 board members tonight, and this is one of the variances required for this application is a form of a D variance called the FAR, floor area ratio variance, which requires 5 affirmative votes. So right now, we have 6 board members. If we had a full complement of 7, then you would have to go 5 for 7, but because we only have 6, you have to go 5 for 6 to get an affirmative approval on the application. So just so you're aware of that, and I'm assuming that by the fact that you're here and ready to present, you wish to continue under those circumstances.
Yes.
Here's what
Yes,
I
I think that's.
Here's what we do. We take it one step further here. So let's present this evening,
Okay,
okay? If you don't like the smell of what's being cooked,
okay.
then we can go from there. But let's go through testimony. We can always have another member watch the YouTube, that type of thing, and go from there. But let's get the testimony on the books tonight,
Okay.
because going forward, our docket gets a little crazy.
So first, Matt was going to present quickly, then I'll go, and then Alex.
Perfect.
I'll just present myself and tell you a little bit about myself. I moved from New York City up West Side to Texas about 5 years ago, but right now we're in the process of moving back here. Our friends and family are all from Melbourne. We have several families that are close to my children that are in the neighborhood as well. I have 2 daughters, 10 and 6. Almost forgot that. 10 and 6. We have been looking to move back to Melbourne for about 1.5 years now. Halfway through COVID, my wife really wanted to be closer to friends and family. And so we've been looking for a place, but we got outbid several times. We found this house off market, and so we went for it, but unbeknownst to us, the owners did not disclose that they've been in front of this board very recently. In fact, they obscured when we asked. So I found out later through Tim that this house had been in front of the board, but our family's looking forward to moving to the community and doing everything possible to help ourselves fit in while we're here. So we're looking forward to it. Hopefully we can do it relatively soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Timothy Klesse. I'm a licensed architect in New York and New Jersey, and been licensed for 25 years, and my license is in good standing. And I've appeared in front of this board on numerous occasions and other boards in the area.
Thank you. Your qualifications are accepted. Please proceed.
So when Matt first called me, because he had found this house, I thought I remembered that it had been in front of the board before. And I don't know if you were here, but it came in front of the board in June of 2022, and then came back to the board in July of 2022. And then a verdict was never reached by the board, and they never came to a vote, and I guess they just decided to sell. And Matt, when he bought the house, wasn't aware of it, and actually for a little bit thought about backing out of buying the house when this became known. When I kind of remembered it, I called Eileen and sort of found out what was going on, and then
Tim,
Yes.
let me interrupt you for a second. Just tell us a little bit about when you say it didn't go to a vote. So what happened? Was it presented and then the application was withdrawn?
I don't think so. I think it was a continuation that was later withdrawn. I'm not exactly sure. It was Christmas Day.
Then they
And-
appeared once,
They appeared twice.
we rescheduled them, and then we didn't show up, and I called and said.
I remember this, yeah.
So the application just,
So it was administratively dismissed without prejudice?
I don't think we ever announced that, they just never did that.
Okay, the reason why I'm
Yeah.
raising it is for what's called res judicata purposes, just to make sure that the board did not come to an actual determination that was memorialized. It never did.
Right. And then
We never had a vote or anything like that. Okay. Thank you.
So, I talked to Eileen, I got the old drawings, I sort of looked at what they were doing, and then I went down and looked at the house and tried to figure out the smartest way to be able to add on to this, because Matt wanted to increase the size of the building, and went back and forth with Matt, and then came up with the solution that's in front of you tonight. And I also have two of the drawings from the original solution if you wanted to see it, but I really don't think it has anything at this point to do with this case. I just brought them along since I had them, in case the board wanted to see it. But with all of that, I'm just gonna run through what I did, right?
It may be because it was so recent, it may
Yeah.
be helpful to the board members during the course of your presentation to point out what changes you made and why.
Okay. So it's 6 River Lane, it's an R6 zone. The lot is 5,155 square feet, so it's undersized, right? It should be 6,000. It's really a 2-story colonial, I guess I would say. Maybe you could call it a story and a half colonial. It actually conforms in building coverage and in lot coverage. We mistakenly added a variance for building coverage, but it shouldn't be there. It can be deleted tonight. It was really for the deck, but now the decision's been reached that the deck is not actually part of building coverage. Because it's an elevated deck that was leading, I think, to the discussion. That's correct, right, Eileen? It's just because it's elevated. Because it drops off in the back there, we're up right by the river back there. So I'm deleting that one variance tonight. The,
Your rear yard unoccupied doesn't change, right?
no. And I think that Alex will go through the variance better detail than me.
Okay.
So what we're really proposing to do, I'm on my BOA 1 sheet, which is exactly the same as your BOA 1 sheet, is to add behind the existing garage to make the garage longer. We didn't make it wider because it's already an encroachment on the side yard, right? Required is 8 feet, we're at 6.85. And then we added over the existing first floor, or the 1-story building on the back of the first floor. And then we've added the deck behind it. So everything that I've kind of double crosshatched behind the garage is a 2-story building. And then it's a second floor addition when it's crosshatched, I'm gonna say to the left, over this rear area. The deck itself is new, and the portico is kind of a 1-story addition, because we're adding a portico, and the portico counts for us in building coverage. That's right, that little area in front. I just want everybody to notice that on this drawing, I also located the adjacent garage, which is forward of our building by, I think, about 12 or 13 feet. And Alex will show it to you in better detail. And we're also about 16 feet away from the property line. And that is really, I guess I'll call it a 1.5-story building. There's no occupancy above the garage. It's, so it helps to kind of minimize the side yard setback issue. I'm gonna now go to my BOA 2 sheet, and if I come back to the end of the existing garage, right there, that is our building addition, right? We're the same width as the garage, which is approximately 10 feet wide. And we're going back about 7 feet for this, really what's for us a two-story building, right? It's the first floor of the garage space, and it's the second floor above, because on the second floor, we've added a primary bathroom behind this existing room. We left the facade of the building as it was. We really didn't change it at all. Just added some closets and kind of made what I call bedroom 2 smaller, and added a laundry room back here and added this other office bedroom. And that area is over the existing one-story addition that was probably constructed 15 years ago. You know, this whole little thing was probably a addition at some point. Now, I'm on my first floor plan. You can see the BOA 3, the existing garage, where we just made the garage about 7 feet longer. And then we're updating the whole house. So we're kind of fixing the little powder room, blowing up these walls in the existing kitchen area where there was like a kitchen with a sort of small family room. And we kind of pushed the kitchen over into this side, created a kitchen, eating area, a living room. In other words, there's no family room in this house. It's just, we just opened up the floor plan. And then we added the front portico. The site itself has zoning restrictions, really because of the narrow width, the 50 feet, and also because of the undersized lot itself. If I come to my front elevation, we're just adding a little bit of roof on the front, pushed back behind the existing garage, right back into this area of the existing garage, and then really adding above that existing one-story space. That's the deck that we were going back and forth of if it wasn't building coverage or not, because the grade is really dropping off in the backyard here. I come to the rear of the building. You can see our new building where we actually added the second floor, and then that's our two-story building that we're adding. The master bath that we added above, and the garage extension below. The house presently, I guess, has one bathroom on the second floor. Right there? So what it allows us to do is to really get what we were able to get out of this. We renovated the one hall bath and created an access way into the back, this new back bedroom where we added the laundry room. And then we were able to add a bathroom that could be attached to the master, left the master as it was, actually shrunk it a little bit so we could get some closet space into here. And kind of really added a two-story building in this area and added above the one-story building in that area. Right, the site itself is tight. So right there on my right side, I'm at 6.75. On my left side, I got a required side combined at 10.75, and you can see we have a little violation on that side. I think I have a couple more photos, but just a couple of things to show you. This is really my shots of the neighbor, of the streetscape, and Alex has some pretty good information to show you tonight. But I just wanted you to see, this is, I guess I would call A1 for me.
Yeah, with these were they in black and white maybe?
I think they came through in black and white on,
So
in the.
why don't we mark them A1 just to make it clear that these are color, it's a colored photo board.
So. The existing, in my photo A, the existing home in the house that's directly to the left. Then when I come down into my B, you can see that gap I was talking about, that 16 feet between the garage of the adjacent house, and I can see exactly where the property line is, because the stake is right there. Property line's about a foot off of that curb. We haven't increased this mass. Then we come, I just wanted you to see that gap again. And in D, I kind of pasted both photos together so you could see what was going on. And this, in our scheme, I'm going to say we have no visual massing on to the streetscape of the building, except for the portico that we're in. The portico, is going right there in front of the building. That is actually a piece of mass on the building. Everything else we've left as is. Then finally, I have the old drawings that came from Chris Maseo, and I guess I would call this A2.
Yes. Right, so the board isn't confused when I'm
Pardon me?
confused, so that I'm not confused and the board is not confused. Why don't you specifically identify what A2 is by date and who the author is, et cetera?
A2 is a document created by Maseo Architects in Livingston, and it's dated 9/1/21, and it was alteration to 6 River Lane for Mr. and Mrs. McCarthy. It's I would have to assume it was the first submission because of the date. I don't see any revision blocks on the drawing. So I think it was the one that was probably presented at the June meeting. We couldn't find a copy of the July documents. But in it, things are happening to the building that we're not doing. Like they're adding to the roof in the front or extending the ridge of the primary gable of the front of the house and by 3 feet. And they're doing that so they could get an occupiable third floor. And they're probably doing that because third floor is less than 50% of the floor below, wouldn't be counted into FAR. So it's almost like considered free space, but it leads to a big massing change on the building, because of all of this extra bulk added up in that third floor area. So we have deleted all of that work. Our building is down here at this level. In addition to that, they've raised the ridge here, they say 4 feet, here it's 3'1". And they kind of just masked up the building, made it look bigger. We've attempted really hard to retain the existing character of the building, which is really this, and then bring our building into it so that the primary ridge would stay as the primary ridge and minimize the visual bulk of the building itself. I think that's all I really. Then I just have plans from this same submission, it's third sheet A2. And on A2,
Wait. Hold on. Let's identify that as A3.
oh, I'm sorry, it's sheet A2, but it's exhibit A3. And on exhibit A3, with the same date, the 9/1/21 date, they've kind of put a big master bedroom suite across the back of the house. We haven't done that. We put our master suite in the front of the building in one of the smaller spaces. And they've also somehow added to the left, closer to the property line. None of that's occurred in this case. In this case, we're really adding that mass on the second floor, which is really, in this case, the hall bath, and then adding approximately half of what they did across the back, because that half is where the existing first floor building is. Okay, that's all I have. I'd like to send it to Alex or questions.
Any questions of
Come
Mr.
back.
Plessy? From the board?
would you question?
That's fine. Mr. Darty.
Actually, I have a question. On your A4, that raised deck that we see, that's being removed?
No, that's new. There is no deck there.
What was the situation you mentioned with Eileen?
It's not building coverage.
Okay, good.
That was a discussion we had.
Tim, I have also a question. So the garage that you said was bumped 7 feet back, is that the equivalent, is that the 238 square feet for the rear yard unoccupied? What's the square footage of that bump out?
The variance? The variance is probably the deck that created the rear yard unoccupied.
So that the deck was the only thing that triggered the rear yard?
Yeah, because I don't think that garage would have been in the rear yard anyway. Because, that's a whole discussion that,
What about the concrete pad? Is that coming out?
the concrete pad
You show concrete pad on your
on the
on your
side,
BOA 1.
on the right side, I took all that out.
Right.
I got rid of it. because I thought it looked good. You mean the pad on the right side here?
No, in the back.
Oh,
Go-
that
go to-
concrete pad in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a, little, like a
You
step into
you
the
have a
basement.
marking here, Tim.
Yeah.
It says
Proposed
propose something.
deck. Looks like deck, right?
That
Proposed
concrete
deck.
pad, right, look at
I
that
don't know.
beforehand, it's a small little
That's
pad on the left hand side, I think it's just an arrow, see it on the left survey?
Yeah, that's a.
See, I'm only looking at the right one. I'm looking at the right survey.
The one in the back.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
one.
that, exactly.
That is, I think, a stairway into the basement.
It's the same existing.
Yeah, we left.
Right, so is there a pad underneath that deck?
No, I think that pad is probably that area. They're calling it a concrete pad, but that area.
That's a big concrete pad.
It's like 2 foot by 8 foot.
It's got an arrow that points, the concrete pad.
See that little-
is
see that little zip?
that
Concrete pad, that's right
Not that
there.
whole square.
Right, okay, and this is the deck pad.
Correct.
Got it, okay, got it, all right.
I don't know, but I may have pictures of that.
So, wait.
So do you see it?
Let's see
Oh,
here.
Alex has good pictures of it from above.
Okay, can you, just to Ashley's point, before we get to Mr. Doherty, just explain why the second floor addition in the rear doesn't count towards rear yard?
Well,
Unoccupied.
I guess the rear yard unoccupied was already there, because it was a one-story building. And then we're just adding
You're
above,
adding
so we
above
haven't
that. I
worsened
got
the
it, yeah.
condition.
Right.
But I thought, Fred, you were talking about this concrete on the side here.
No.
I just got rid of it because I thought it looked
The
bad
la-
from
the
street.
labeling's funky
Yeah,
on,
you
on
mean
that,
there.
on your BOA 1 on the right
Yeah.
side.
I get it over there.
Yeah, it's a concrete pad, and so I thought you were installing a new concrete pad underneath the deck.
No, it's some piece of concrete.
Yeah,
under
it's
that
okay,
building.
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the way it's labeled.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
If I may. The floor area ratio you're talking about is existing usage goes up from 1,924 square feet to 2,261 square feet, which is about, call it 340 square feet. Is that sort of evenly divided between the first floor and the second floor? I mean, how is that making up the
Which one,
addition?
which one are you talking?
So I'm looking at the summary of variances requested, the form.
Yeah. But which one?
FAR.
FAR?
So there is existing usage versus proposed usage. The change is about 340 square feet.
We added,
The chart says 405 square feet.
But that's over the standard.
That's the over the, yeah, just the
we added
difference
80
between.
square feet on the first floor for the 80 square feet for the area behind the garage.
Mhm.
Then we added 80 square feet on the second floor for the area above it.
Mhm.
And then we added 177 square feet for the second floor across the back. So 160 plus 177.
Yeah, that's how you get to it.
Makes it 337, yeah.
437 is what we added.
160 and 177? That's
337.
337.
Now, 337 is what we,
Added, when we're talking about added.
So I
to
think
the-
that
to
that's
the-
what
to the
makes up.
FAR.
oh, no, the FAR was over when we started.
Correct, you
Right.
start over, but he's talking about the difference between the
Difference.
1924 to 2261.
So
The
I-
house was already over.
So I think you answered it because you said 337 is the difference, basically the 80/80 and the 177.
That's what it is, 80,
And
80, 80, 80, and
It
177.
adds up. It adds up.
It adds up.
Thank you.
Mr. Klesse, do you know what the FAR increase was under the prior iteration of this application?
Yes.
Just so we're comparing apples to apples to the extent that we're against it.
On June 6th, the FAR request,
Her calculation was incorrect, by the way.
yeah, it's hard for me to really.
She did her calculation off of the increase, not the standard on that application.
The
You're saying
minute,
she being the applicant?
No,
No.
being Chris. When she did that because I remember making a note to saying something to her about her FAR calculation was incorrect.
the minutes of the second meeting say that the first, well, I guess it says the first time the FAR was 53.3. And then the second time it was 43.7 at the July meeting.
So
So-
it's similar numbers then.
I think it's pretty close to where we are now,
Right.
but I just tried to push it more towards the rear. I think her numbers were a little off though.
Her first numbers were definitely off.
But because she's also going for a variance for building coverage for 25.3, and we conform on building coverage. And it's pretty hard to get a lot of FAR in this, it's pretty hard to get more FAR in the second floor than the first floor, you know? So I think that if she really had a building coverage of 25.3, she had an FAR of probably, you know,
It's really hard
Close
to
to
tell.
50
The case was in
is all I'm
12%,
saying.
so. Okay.
That's helpful.
Mr. Dowdy, you're already sworn. Could you please give us your qualifications?
Certainly, I'm a licensed professional planner, PP, it's good and current standing, as well as the nationally certified AICP. My education is at Rutgers Blaustein, or a master's in city and regional planning, a concentration in development, redevelopment studies, and a certification in public policy. I testify in this capacity on a weekly and daily basis.
Where's your current office?
54 Main Street, Chatham.
Thank you. Qualifications are accepted. Please proceed.
For this evening, as Mr. Klesse said, I prepared an exhibit packet. I was out there on Saturday with the drone, walking around. It consists of slides and maps and photographs to document the site, the zone, just for general orientation purposes. If it pleases the board, we can mark this as an exhibit and I'll pass it out.
We're gonna mark this as A4, and then once it's passed out, Alex is gonna provide the foundation for it.
10 sets.
You want to just give it to me, we'll pass it down. She's here. Sarah.
So on slide 1, it's just the existing zoning map for Milburn Township. Towards the bottom left, you'll see a yellow circle and a yellow arrow indicating approximately where the property is in relation to the zoning map and scheme. As you can see, we are in that salmon color, identifiable as the R6 zone.
Okay, just, let me just back up just for 1 second. So what Mr. Doherty has handed out to the board is a, we'll call a planning presentation packet. We're gonna mark as A4. which consists of 11 pages that Mr. Doherty's going to go through. Go ahead.
Slide 2 is the property in question. This was released from NJDEP's GeoWeb. What's important to note here on slide 2 is that green buffer. This is a layer through NJDEP's GeoWeb. And I think later, as we go through the packet, you'll understand why I'm pointing out that green buffer. As we indicated before, we have that rear yard unoccupied variance here. It is an undersized lot, but there is substantial mature vegetation to the rear of this property as we go through that. Slide 3 here is again NJDEP's GeoWeb. Another lens is more of an aerial. As you can see, we have a very mature vegetation to the rear of the property, kind of wrapping around the neighborhood, going up the river banks there. And it's so mature that it's fairly difficult to actually see the building in this lens. Slide 4. The importance of this slide here, really, NJDEP's GeoWeb is pretty comprehensive of what it can offer you. What's important here is the building footprints that you see here in the built environment from this lens, and it's a very accurate depiction of what this neighborhood looks like. It's a very unique neighborhood, and the next couple of slides will kind of show that. But nonetheless, this is a pretty typical square box as it sits there at 6 River Lane. What's important to note here on slide 4 is we kind of have a weird jog happening in the rear property line, and it, for the lots behind us, kind of come across and they drop back down. As you can kind of see, the neighboring properties on a River Lane there, the lots get substantially longer. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case here on this portion of River Lane, so we do have the undersized lot issue happening here. Slide 5, these are photos I took myself this past week on August 19th. Slide 5 is a shot of the property in question, 6 River Lane, standing across the street at the curb. You see it's a very small, modest, house. It's fairly easy on the eyes. And, I say that because when we look at this, it really is hidden in that tree canopy there. And we'll kind of see what is surrounding this property. It's not just lost in the foliage, it's just lost in the overall built environment. Slide 6 here. The top left slide is directly catty corner across the street. That's what you see across the street, catty corner. Slide up on the top right is directly next door to 6 River Lane. These two properties kind of hug the corner. You can see they're fairly large. The bottom left is an aerial view of the slide above it. What is also important to note is if we look at the neighbor behind them, you'll see the brick facade, then it goes to white. It's a very common theme in this neighborhood, the expansion off the rear. The bottom right is an aerial view of our immediate neighbor, again, reflective of the slide above it. And you can kind of see the scale of the property in question here, down in the corner. You kind of see that blue facade and roof right there. That is 6 River Lane, the property we're here for tonight. These are our immediate neighbors as you turn onto River Lane. So we do have a very prominent stance in the built environment there from the public realm. And slide 7 here is a area view top down of 6 River Lane. So as you can see, we were talking about that patio just a moment ago. Off on the right, that is to be removed, as Mr. Klesse indicated, that concrete slab on the side. What is also important to note is we kind of see in this shot here, there is almost a tear down, step down. That is where this proposed addition is going to be, pretty much right on top of that in that existing building footprint. As we've indicated, that garage is to come 7 feet back to the rear. So we are doing a little bit of a building footprint expansion into the rear. But that's by way of the garage being expanded upon to make it a little bit more usable of a space. Slide 8, we kind of.
Can I just back up just 1 second?
Certainly.
On page 7.
Yes.
Just to give the board some perspective. So the structure that's closest to the proposed addition off the back of the garage to the right, that's the garage for the property next door, or what is that? That's
Correct,
sort
that
of-
is a two bay garage, where that SUV is kind of parked right there, that's their garage.
And what's to the rear of that to the left?
It looks like another patio.
It's just a patio with the red.
Yes, a little probably fireplace right there, some lawn chairs. But predominantly the residents themselves, they're on the other side of that garage.
Okay, thank you.
So slide 8, we kind of up the altitude with the drone, and we get a bigger perspective of our immediate neighbors and immediate neighborhood here. As you can see, the property in question in comparison to the neighbors is fairly small. It's charming, it's small, as Mr. Klesse said, we're really not changing the front facade other than the portico. So that appearance will still remain from the public realm, really just trying to capture that addition to improve the living capacity of the residents. But as you can see off to the left there, the structures get fairly large towards the rear of the property, across the street, catty corner, towards the dead end. You can kind of see that structure is fairly large. Again, we indicated the two corner properties adjacent to our right and across the street there. And then there's the one directly across the street. Some of the houses do get fairly large. When we look at slide 9, we kind of take the drone out a little bit further to see what's going on behind us, because we feel like those neighbors would be impacted as well by any scope of work going on. So the top left slide is more of a larger perspective of that street behind us, the neighborhood behind us. As you can see, again, we do have that fairly large foliage and tree canopy that separates the rear yards there. The top left, we kind of zoom in a little bit closer. Again, you can't see the property in question because of the dense foliage there. But those houses to the rear as well, as you can see on that top right, they extend to their rear yard. They're fairly large. It's almost deceptive when you drive through the neighborhood to really get a feel on how big some of these houses are. The bottom left slide and the bottom right slide, we come back to River Lane and we kind of see some of the neighbors we have. And I think those two slides, the bottom left and bottom right, really give you an understanding on how big some of the massings are of our immediate neighbors. And I think this is important to understand as we look at slide 10 here, is this is a very common theme throughout the neighborhood, blowing out the back of the houses for additional livable space and square footage. The top left here, again, is right around the corner. I believe that's Rawway Avenue. So just a few houses away. You can see they're currently working on maybe the addition or just some new siding. The top left and top right photo is of the same house. And you see the bottom left and the bottom right are various other houses scattered throughout the neighborhood where you can kind of get a feel for, building above the garage and going further back, especially on that bottom left. The bottom right, you can kind of see that property there has the portico in the front as well as an extension to the rear. But nonetheless, this last slide gives a real perspective on just some of the variety of housing types in the neighborhood from aerial bird's eye view. Top left, you can kind of really get an immediate feel. That's our immediate neighborhood here, right across the street. Some of the houses vary in sizes. As you can see, there is that recurring theme of expanding into the back. Top right, again, we show you some of our immediate neighbors on Rawway, as the houses are fairly large as they approach the rear. The bottom left is a very nice photograph. I really like this neighborhood back here. As you can kind of see, they share that rear driveway behind the houses as well. That's the neighborhood behind us, good proximity. And again, the bottom right gives you perspective as well. Some of the houses with the additions off to the rear, and again, some of the houses with relatively small footprints, and again, maybe some of what we have there today with that rear screened-in addition that maybe they'll come before you, maybe they won't. But as we can see, there is some variety within the neighborhood. It is very interesting and very quaint, charming neighborhood. So this is the point of this exercise, is to kind of show you this recurring theme where houses are substantially larger. We certainly won't be the largest property or largest house in the neighborhood. And the additions seem to be a common theme. It seems to be what the market is asking. As we heard, there was an application prior. It was a little bit more greedy, I would say, trying to get some extra additional usable space that didn't account, as Mr. Kess said, for the floor area ratio. I think what we have here is right on par with what the neighborhood was asking for, what the market's asking for, and there's no tricks here. We're not going to change the front elevation, expand it to that third floor. With that being said, I think Mr. Klessy's report on attachment E, page 11, really outlines the variances and where we are with those variances. But nonetheless, this is one tax lot, block 507, lot 66. We are in that R6 single-family zone. As you saw, the neighborhood is a mix of various single-family dwellings ranging in size and architectural design. We do have some zone conformance, as Mr. Klessy pointed out. That comes by way of lot coverage, where the zone requires a maximum of 45. We are floating under that, approximately 38.17. So though we are asking for some FAR, we are not asking for lot coverage. We do have a minimum lot area. The zone requires 6,000 square feet. We're just south of that. We're about 5,155 square feet. By way, we are deficient on lot width. The zone requires 60, we're at 50. So we do have some hardship here when we talk about the shallowness of the lot, the narrowness, that extra 10 feet could help. It really could, to help alleviate that FAR. Lot depth, the zone requires 90 feet, we're about 103. So we do have some depth. I think what's important to note as we look at that mature foliage and that tree canopy, talking with the client, talking with Mr. Kessling, there will be no tree removal of those mature trees. So I think we'll have a really well-screened rear yard from the neighbors, which I think is important from a visual impact. We'll kind of go through attachment E on page 11 here. We have the side yard setback relief of, we have a 6.8 existing. We're going to trim it down to 6.75. So we really are about 1.25 feet. So with that being said, the requirement is 8. So it's an existing condition on the site as it is with that building footprint. We have additional side yard setback requirements for when the house goes up past 32 or about 32 feet, as your ordinance reads. Again, existing is 6.8, we'll be at 6.75. The requirement is 12. Again, that's an existing condition, the way the building sits on the property today. That's a deviation of 5.25. When we talk about combined yard setbacks, we need, I'd say 35%. What we're proposing is 33%. And I say that, and that's about 0.98 off, or 2% off of what the zone requires. So it's a small deviation, but nonetheless, it relates to the buildable footprint of the house and how it exists today on that lot. We have the building coverage. Again, building coverage really is an increase from 7. Sorry? No, we don't have the building coverage variance. Okay. There we go. We took that off. Thought we took all right. We have the rear yard unoccupied area, as we've heard. That was a existing there today is 35.5%. Zone requires it to be at 25%. We're proposing at 20.3. So I believe that might have to do something with that deck. As we've heard, it kind of slopes to the rear. So you really utilize that rear yard. We feel the deck would be appropriate to maximize that rear yard activity underneath that canopy. But nonetheless, your zone ordinance requires for a rear yard to be unoccupied or of structures or improvements. So we are asking for that relief. That's a deviation of 4.7% for scale of where we're at. We have a floor area ratio, which is why we're here before you today for that D4 variance. The floor area ratio, the zone requires that to be a maximum of 36%. What we're proposing for you today is 43.8%. For scale, we're asking for 405 additional square feet than what the zone would allow for. Again, floor area ratio directly is related to the area of the property. We are undersized. This is an offset about 7.8%. So with that being said, I'll kind of jump into the testimony for the relief here.
Alex, before you do that.
Yes.
Did you take a look at the FARs based on the tax records for the properties in the
I did.
area? Yeah.
I did.
And where'd you come out just generally?
So, as I indicated on the slide deck there, particularly on River Lane, some of those properties actually do get larger, so the buildings do get larger. So some of the FARs, even though the properties, the building, the massing is large, they're under or they're right on par. I will tell you, the property right to our immediate neighbor, that FAR I calculated was at 48.4%. Our immediate neighbor on the corner.
And can you just help the board, if you could refer to A4, which property that is?
Certainly. I'll refer to it on slide 5. It's the corner lot on River Lane in Greenwood Drive, our immediate neighbor to the right. That address is going to be 4 River Lane. And I calculated an FAR for 48.4% off of the Mod 4 data that was taken in
On
2012.
which page?
Slide 4, it's the corner property, River Lane and Greenwood Drive, our immediate neighbor to the right.
So the Colonial.
The corner lot,
You mean
yes.
6.
I'll use 6
You mean page 6 on page?
We can go to page 6. Page 6 is going to be the top right and the bottom right. That particular building, our immediate neighbor, where we were talking about the garage and the patio, that property I calculated an FAR at 48.4%.
You have a 2-car garage on that house?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And as well as caddy corner across the street is a 2-car garage as well. There was a few other ones that were slightly over. 16 Rawway had an FAR of 39%, but again, some of these were sitting right at 36.1, 28, 29, because they had a little bit larger of a lot. So for the FAR, the standard case that we reference is the Randolph Town Center versus Randolph Township. And essentially, when we look at this, the D4 or the continued FAR, when we look at this, can the site accommodate this? And I believe the answer is yes. The additional floor area really pertains to that second floor going up. We're not really expanding the livable footprint of the building. It's going to stay right above that rear, I guess, boxed-in deck or built-in porch there off the back. It extends really, it's to go vertical. The additional floor area does not extend beyond that existing building footprint. And when we look at this, it doesn't increase the building height than what's already there, as Mr. Klesse indicated. The front elevation will remain from the public realm. I believe the site can accommodate the additional floor area. Again, we'll have adequate parking for the dwelling. That 7-foot extension of the garage really makes it a usable garage. We do have the driveway as well. Talking with the applicant, Mr. Klesse, we're looking into stormwater management systems if need be to accommodate. We are on a smaller lot. We do understand there's a river there. Talking with the client and the applicant as well, Mr. Klesse, this property does not flood, but at the end of the day, if the board deems it necessary, we are only going above the existing building footprint, but we will comply with what the board would recommend there. When I look at the site collectively, I believe we can accommodate that additional FAR variance here. I don't believe we'll be out of character when we look at FAR. We're just from a planning standpoint, I think, to prevent the McMansions coming to a neighborhood that really don't align with the built neighborhood. In this particular case, the neighborhood's built out. We're not going any wider. We're really not going to notice this addition. It's going to the rear of the property, which is a very common theme. So from that perspective, the house really won't change from the neighborhood, character. When I look at the positive criteria for this application, I believe the use and the application really does promote the purposes of land use law and with the general welfare, with a competitive housing stock that meets the needs and demand of a growing population. As we've heard, the prior owner came before you asking for the same thing. I think this is for a reason. I think the house warrants some kind of renovation. The project retains and improves what's there. The improvement adds value and quality to the site, which adds value and quality to the neighborhood and the surrounding dwellings as well. The project promotes efficient land use, variety of land uses, positive aesthetics, with no alterations really being done on the front elevation, but that portico, which I think is an overall improvement. All of the above promote purposes of the municipal land use law, purpose A, G, I, and M. Purpose I for a desirable visual environment with that additional feature of the portico. When I look at some of the potential impacts or the negative criteria here, I believe relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public. will have minimal impacts, if any. We'll have a site that will function and operate efficiently and safely. I think what's important to note is the current structure is 88 years old, so this addition will certainly bring that structure into compliance with all applicable building and fire regulations. I believe the dwelling is comfortably sized. There is no overcrowding, overdevelopment. The overall building mass is compatible with the area. It does not really change from the public realm. And when we look at this, I took it one step further. I dug into some of the census data from Millburn. 33% of the population falls between the ages of 0 and 19. So as we've heard, we're really trying to grab, more habitable space for a family. Give you the breakdowns on this. 0 to 9 is 14%. 10 and 19 is 19%. There's your 33% of Millburn's population falls within those age cohorts. So with that being said, we have a single-family dwelling, it's permitted use in the zone. We're asking to improve the single-family dwelling for essentially a family. When we look at the C relief, I believe all the positives cited for prior carry forward. The site as it is today has relief related to pre-existing non-conforming conditions. All relief would fall under what I would believe to be a C1 hardship, which is the nature of the lot, being that it's undersized and the narrowness. We do have that 10 feet width deficiency. With that being said, the side yard setbacks exist today. In these conditions, as I described, relief really is minimal, as the neighbor to our right, or if you're looking at the house to our left, has the 2-car garage for separation. And our neighbor to our right, if you're looking at their property, their building mass, if you will, is kind of reflective, just like ours. It's kind of off to their right as well. So I don't believe we're going to have any invasive nature or impediment on adequate light, air, and open space and quality of use of their property here. When we look at the rear yard and that unoccupied space, that's relief, I believe poses little to no detriment. As we went over, it is heavily screened with mature tree canopies. I believe it's going to impede on the neighbors' privacy to the rear and their quality on their property. When we look at the portico, again, as Mr. Klesse said, the building coverage really is not on the table at this point. When we look at this application, we can justify these relief under the C1 or the C2, which is the flexible balancing test, where the benefits of this application as a whole would outweigh the detriments. I see no detriment here. I do see a lot of positive. I don't think this is a greedy ask or overdevelopment, as I stated. I'll conclude this project helps to ensure the Millburn housing stock stays competitive. It builds upon what's already there. It would add value to the Millburn housing stock. The neighborhood pose little to no substantial impacts to the surrounding properties and ensures comfortable living arrangement for a family in a single-family dwelling. And I believe the statutory criteria for relief have been met and approval would be warranted.
So, Mr. Dougherty,
Yes.
if this lot conformed, your FAR and rear unoccupied would still be over.
Yes, it's the way the ordinance is written. It's a very good ordinance. Bigger the lot, the bigger the percentages, if you will, especially for the rear yard unoccupied. That ordinance
It's an
reads
inverse relationship.
combined side yard setback as well. It's 35% of the lot width. So as the lot gets bigger, that percentage will get bigger. So that's how they kind of read. So we would still be over, correct?
Right. So you're obviously you don't have the land, so you could argue the C1 hardship, but then what about this FAR and rear unoccupied? What did you do? And maybe Mr. Klesse can answer this better to try to minimize this further, because you say it's not greedy, but these are big deviations.
I understand that, yes. And I'll leave this to Mr. Klesse to clarify. If the lot was conforming, I believe we're somewhere in the range of, if we were to continue with this particular design, we'd be asking for about 96 square feet of an FAR versus the 504. So to have a compliant lot area really does help us move that needle into more of a palatable number. But certainly for the sake of the FAR, 504 is greater than 96 square feet.
405. Yeah.
I'm sorry, 405, yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it speaks to the massing on the smaller lot.
Yeah.
What efforts were made to reduce that?
As a land use planner, I can only defer to the architect. I know he spent a great deal of time designing the property. So that's-
Come on up, Tim.
Conveniently by the
And you turn the lights on too.
Well, he has his own lighting.
The lights come on.
Yes.
It's like I was sleepy over there. The garage is 5.4% of the FAR. The garage is 279 square feet. That's kind of helping to sort of inflate my FAR, but I know that kind of would inflate everybody's FAR. You know what I mean?
Well, you
I mean,
can
I'm not-
choose where you can choose where you take it and give it.
Right.
I mean, you
And
can
it's
also
a
say
single
somewhere
car
else in
garage.
some
It's not at
other
least a
portion of the
two-car
house. I mean,
garage.
you know.
Otherwise, the FAR would have to be removed from the building. We struggled with this. We did a bunch of different plans related to it. We really ended up deciding that in terms of the second floor, that we needed the bathroom addition. Right? We needed to get a second bathroom for the second floor. Right? There's presently just a hall bath. So, and we made a decision that utilizing the front bedroom was a smarter move since we could use that as a master. So we really don't have a lot of closet space, and we don't have a tub in the shower. It's just a shower in this master. So the only place that I could really probably remove FAR would be the office space in the rear. It's the only place I could get it.
Well, I mean, that's up to you.
Yeah, that's really the only place that I could remove it. And I also, as I'm just looking at this, I could see that I could probably pull this wall in 2 foot, which may actually be a little more beneficial because that would prevent that long line of the building when you look down. Like if you remember when Alex showed the pictures with the drone and you could see where the brick and then they had the Tyvek and they created a sort of a long wall on the building. But that's actually, most boards would consider that to be bad because I took a building that had a visual scale of, let's say, 26 feet, and I added 10 more feet to it. Right? Now we've flipped the gable to kind of minimize that, but it may make sense to pull this building in 2 feet up here so that you could articulate the main building a little better. But if I did that, that would still give the back room and take away, but it really doesn't quite do a lot from it because it really only takes away 20 square feet, from this. It's somewhere, I can see we got some dimension of 9'7". It's probably about 10 feet outside. I'm saying come in 2 feet, that's really only 20 square feet. I don't know if that's really what the board is looking for, but it would get me under, it would get me to 385, I guess, in terms of FAR. After that, the only alternative would be probably, the smartest alternative would be to delete the office in the rear, which I know you kind of wanted. But that would be, they really have 2 girls. We've already made the front bedroom smaller so that we could pick up this closet space. But we really kind of have 2 bedrooms existing. We can't get an extra out of it. So if we wanted a space for like an office or something, it's probably the only space we have, short of the basement. But I think that would be the way to do it. If I took away that bedroom, I still need to kind of, I'd probably flip this way. I would pick up 100. I could pick up probably about 140 square feet of FAR.
If you remove the office?
I think we still would keep the laundry room up there. I would rather remove 20 square feet of FAR and still keep it and kind of, I think, help the building a little bit. Because I don't think you really see the FAR back there, especially if I pull the building in a little bit.
I think it needs to be this is me speaking, not the board, of course,
Yeah.
a more holistic approach. You know, you have to look at where you can nip and tuck, because once again, from my standpoint, you got a big development here on a small lot. So, you know, I think it's going to take all of the above and nipping and tucking to try to make this thing, for me, a little bit more palatable.
Do we cheat and take the third floor as we described before? Because it doesn't count towards FAR?
No, because we'd have to raise the bridge to do that. Look worse on the.
Yeah.
You're
It
also
would
not,
look
you're
worse
not
on
going to
the
get rid of FAR, doing
No,
it.
I don't believe we will,
You
but
may help it, but then you got a massing problem on your side there.
Yeah.
So, any other questions from board members for either Mr. Downey or Mr. Klesse?
I do. So flooding, so did this house flood during any like Hurricane Sandy, for example? Because I know it's called River Road, it's pretty close to
Sounds
the river.
bad, River Road to me.
Yeah, it's River Road, it's pretty close to the river.
I don't know the answer.
You don't know if it
I don't know.
flooded.
Do you know the answer to that?
It did not.
If the house itself did not flood, and did anybody on the road flood?
Yes, the neighbors did.
The neighbors did,
Go
only because,
back to Alex's exhibit, that green exhibit is the best. To kind of figure that, his
Yeah.
slide two, I guess. Which neighbor to the right, I would guess would be lower than the one to the left?
If you don't know, it's
It's
fine.
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, just a
you
question.
need to guess at it.
Wonder
I
about
would
the
assume
neighborhood-
that this,
neighborhood floods.
this stuff that's painted green is probably painted green because it is a floodplain.
I would assume so. And you have to look at where the property lines stop,
Yeah.
so that whole green area.
I believe it, I believe it is in the flood zone.
Yeah.
You pay flood insurance. I believe so.
Any other questions? Anything else from Mr. Downey? You're good? Any testimony? before you-
I'll conclude it.
Go for
Well,
it.
I guess I just do want to say one thing first, because I can't shut up. Did Alex,
No,
it's
I mean,
kind of
that's
saying,
what she's always-
and that is that there is this kind of thing that you could sort of, I just want, you could kind of pop up the middle of this third floor and you could really do that. And it would be more detrimental to the neighborhood than what we're proposing. We're really different than the previous application. We actually have kept the ridge where it was and we've tucked our addition into the rear. Like it may be a smart solution to think about this as just pulling this side in a little bit and letting that mass be subordinate.
If you
More
need
to
an
the building.
FAR, we're partners in this, baby.
Delete?
No, I said, if you need an FAR, okay, how you get around it is up to you, but we're still partners in this.
Right.
So even if you add a third floor and you still need an FAR,
No.
you're not need any
Oh,
FAR.
because we're over on existing.
Right.
No, not really, we're grandfathered.
On
You could
existing.
still, you could do half of the third floor. You could.
Well, it
You could do
depends.
half of the area to third floor below.
Then
Even
that-
though
that-
it's over. it
That's,
doesn't matter.
that's as of right.
Right. So all I'm saying is I think that this is probably a smarter solution. And I know it's a lot of stuff to handle. And it's a big FAR ask, but it is a small lot. And we have really concealed it and tried to minimize its impact on the neighborhood.
That cruise ship look, is what I call it, is a concern.
The side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and that's why I was hoping that we could delete 20 square feet and pull it in and be done, as I look at this in a little better detail. But I guess I'll let Alex summarize it, and the owner could say if he's willing to maybe delete that back room, which I think we could do also.
Well, Alex, why don't you sum up, because I still have to open up the public for comment.
Certainly. I think what you have here tonight is an application that's straight down the middle. We're not trying to hide anything. We don't want to cheat and go up. As you've heard, it's not going to be an appropriate look. We believe that's going to be more detrimental from a massing and visual standpoint. The house is charming. The aerials, the slides, you can see it's pretty well screened. It's well hidden. The cruise ship narrative, I believe, is rightfully so concerned. As you know, I was able to pick out in the neighborhood those larger homes as they go to the rear. But in this particular case, it is a very small lot. It's nestled back there. It's well hidden, well screened. I don't believe it's going to be a visual impairment. Kind of come around that corner, you pass that house. So we certainly won't be the largest house in the neighborhood from the public realm. I think we meet the intent of the FAR to prevent these McMansion parachutes in your neighborhood. The existing variances unrelated to the FAR, those exist at the property as it stands today. We're not trying to expand left and right, trying to tuck it in a little bit. We want to just basically go up in the back of that existing building footprint. It's for a growing family. I think when we really look at this at face value, we heard something similar to this. We see this in the neighborhood. We've just came out of one of the hottest real estate markets in recorded history. This is what the market is driving. This is what it's asking for. And I think this is not a greedy ask of overdevelopment. And I think when we look at this going to the rear, it has little to no detriment. And I think when we look at this application, it sounds like a big number, but it really does relate to the undersized lot. If we had that required square footage, this would be a little bit more palatable, I believe, from the board's perspective. But because we are undersized, this FAR does seem like a lot. But in perspective, when we look at this neighborhood, this is not a large home at all. So with that, if Matt wanted to come up and say anything.
All right, well, I'm gonna open up to questions for the audience first, okay? So, anyone in the audience have any questions regarding this application? Questions only for any of the professionals? Your name, please,
Sarah Sherman,
and your address.
42 Greenwood Drive. I
Thank
live
you.
around the corner and have for 30 years. To Ms. Truitt's question about Sandy, Sandy was not a water event for us, but my question is, did it flood in Tropical Storm Ida?
I don't have that information available. I don't live in this neighborhood. And the current owner is trying to move into his house. He's not there, so I don't think we're going to be able to answer that question for you this evening. If we could call the Murphys, I believe that's who the prior owners were, maybe it will get you that answer. I don't have that.
All right. My concern, as always.
Any other
flooding.
questions? You'll have time for comment.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Please feel free to come up. Please identify yourself and your address, please.
Josh Field, 72 Greenwood Drive.
Any questions?
So I sat through the application by the McCarthy's, and I saw the whole process. Robert, Craig, and Chandra, you guys were all there. I fully, think
Your
it's.
question.
Okay.
Yeah, just we'll get to
My
comments.
question is, is this, it had been resoundingly rejected the first time around, and there were a lot of, concerns about runoff, drainage, all of those things. Water is an issue in that area. I live right behind their house, facing the house to the left. We share the property line in the back of my house. And that's really my concern, is water is an issue, as we all know, in that neighborhood. And
Well, as you know, these obviously it's really not a question for either one of these, but I will tell you this: that all these applications under construction must go through our engineering department, and they are reviewed for all these types of concerns, whether dry wells have to be installed, other types of water mitigation process. That is all goes through engineering after the zoning board approves the application. If they deny the application, it doesn't need to go to the zoning board. The engineering department.
Okay.
So that will all be concerned through engineering.
To answer and expand upon that, we're asking for FAR, we're asking to build on existing building footprint. We're not asking to build more into the rear yard and eat away at that. So the drainage issue can really only be improved when we look at what the chairman said, that it would have to go through engineering. So if there's something we can do to improve it, we would. But to build up on that building footprint just going up, I don't see how that would really dramatically increase stormwater runoff.
Right.
It's already building up.
Because I saw on the plan, and it sounded like the plan has changed with the deck, because the deck is obviously going to cover a large
It's
area,
elevated,
but you've removed that, is that right, from the
We
plan?
removed the concrete stone patio, and they're proposing a elevated deck. which, as we've discussed in the beginning of the application, is not going to count towards the building coverage, the lot coverage.
Okay.
We're actually under the lot coverage requirement for the property, even though we are undersized.
Again, I'm not an expert at water runoff
Yeah.
or coverage or any of those things, but I would imagine that a large deck would affect the ability for water to drain. No?
The engineering department doesn't typically, it doesn't affect their grading requirements because decks allow water to go through them and they come to the ground. They're not covering the grounds, they're not pond covers, it's not additional, ground.
So underneath the deck, it would be grass or dirt, or would it?
If they decided to put concrete under it, then yes, they have to speak to that. If there's grass under it.
The lot coverage is 45% allowable, just so you understand, we're at 38.17. We're drastically under that 45%.
For coverage?
For lot coverage, yes. The addition is existing in the building footprint today. But again, I think it only improves by going through the engineering department.
Yeah.
Maybe they would impose that we increase, safety and measures for stormwater mitigation.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
That's it for questions.
Any other questions from any member of the audience? In that case, I'll open up for public comment. If you have a comment regarding this application, please feel free to come forward. We will be swearing you in, so please raise your right hand and swear.
Use for from testimony about the humanitarian duty, truthful, truth, and no truth.
Yes.
Your name and address for us.
Sarah Sherman, SARA, 42 Greenwood Drive. I looked at the plans on the website and I walked around. This is a house I've passed hundreds of times over the years. That is a very small lot. And I'm also troubled by the way that it pitches down. To my knowledge, there is flooding back there, and that is a major concern. I am hearing from residents in my community, in the different groups I'm involved in, that this is exactly the kind of thing that we don't want. I know the ordinance allows, but maybe we need to revisit some of these ordinances and we should talk to the township committee about that. Just because we can fill the lot doesn't mean we should. To me, this is a very small lot. I like your comparison to the cruise ship look. It's a rather unassuming house with a very small facade. And the idea that you're just filling it and going out in the back, and I do have some serious concerns about whether there would be flooding. I could fill my yard too and expand my house twice. I'd be foolish. I'd flood even more than I do, and I would impact my neighbors adversely. So maybe it's time for the town to look at some of the ordinances about how we're addressing possibility of flooding and how it impacts our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? I'll close, well, do you have any?
Wait, I'm trying, we're trying to get a decision, we're really close. Just tell me. Which one?
I have 3 more applications, so would you like to speak or would you like me to move on and you can go discuss it with your client?
We would like to, Mark, and we can come back if you'd like, but what we would like to do is to delete the bedroom on the second floor and alter it so that we can retain the laundry room. And it'll lower my FAR request from 405 to 285 square feet tonight.
Which bedroom?
Just trying to make sure I'm right. Yeah. What I did was, I deleted this one. That's what I
Number
did.
4, the office/bedroom.
Yeah, I did. Because it could lower the FAR. That's the only reason. Drop my FAR to 285. Which
You're
is-
dropping 120.
Drops it 120.
How about trimming the garage in?
I could get 2 by 10, I could get 20 feet off of the garage.
20 feet off the garage.
Like, let's say that, well, I'm saying 20 and 20, because it would be 20 on both floors. Let's see what I can get. I know, I can't really get it up here. I could get a total of 30 square feet off
Off the garage?
the garage and the room above.
So that's 60?
No, I mean a total of 30.
30, okay. So we got 30 there, and what do we have in the other spot?
So that would be
120?
285 plus 30, that would give me,
150?
let's do it.
Who's 30 feet off?
That's 315 minus 405.
Wait. You're trimming how much off that bedroom? You said is 120, right?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right, it's 2, I screwed it up. It's 260, 255, right?
I have 255.
255. It's a request is 255 divided by 5.55 or something, that's a lot. So it's 5%, the FAR is 4.9%.
4.9.
I'm gonna just call it 5, for what we're doing.
So you got a 5% deviation then.
It'd give us a 5% FAR.
Go in the right
It's
direction.
always-
Yeah, you got it.
30 square feet, the 30 square feet, just describe where you're taking that off.
I took 20 square feet off of the garage and 10 square feet off of the master bedroom. So 20 garage, 10 off the master bath. And then I took 120 off of bedroom 4/office.
How much off the bedroom office?
120.
120 even.
I took 120, 10, and 20. So I took a total of
150.
Yeah, you got 150 off.
150 off of 405,
So you're looking at 255 deviation.
which is the 255 deviation, which is 4.9%.
That we're calling 5%.
Okay. It is, it's like 4.94
Yeah.
or something, yeah.
Was that due to you were unoccupied? Nothing, right? Because nothing's back, the garage is the back wall.
I guess, because the rear unoccupied is really fitted straight across.
Yeah, and
It
your,
doesn't,
right, your backyard, your garage is in front of that line.
my garage is up
Your
7
garage
feet,
wall,
8 feet.
So if you're at 5%, that's 40% essentially. So 35 plus 5, I guess that's where it comes to. 35 is the limit.
On which
36.
36
36.
on FAR?
FAR,
FAR.
Yeah, 36.
36 goes up to 41 then, basically.
5,
5 up,
41. The request would be for 41, or the
5%.
proposed is 41.
And the current is 43.8.
The current is 43, yeah. The current request, the existing's at 37.
37.3, that's what I was getting at.
So you pull that side wall in or no?
Yeah, I got rid of it. I took the whole thing away.
The whole thing, okay.
Second
And that, is that changing your?
It is a one-story building below, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do your combined side yard.
It helped
Yeah,
combine
it's
side yard
existing.
on this side,
Well, it is being worse, but
doesn't help it on this side. I think it took,
actually somehow.
the
Oh, your combined
combined
side
side,
yard drops a little bit because you're getting rid of that patio, right? That's what drops that a little bit. Because your proposed is 16.52, your existing 16.57, so you're making that condition better, your combined side yard. Is that because you're getting rid of that patio?
no, it's getting a little worse because the property line isn't square.
Oh, I got it.
It's just that the property line is off.
Yeah.
So as we go back, it got worse. It got a little better. In the front here, it's 6.9, and in the back it's 6.8. So as we came back, we went to 6.75. Now we're probably at, I
A
don't
hair
know,
better.
6.78 or something,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but not a lot.
Okay. Right. Any questions from the board? Then I'll close the hearing, the public portion. So board members, please, we only have 6 voters, okay? This is a FAR, so we need 5 affirmative votes. So I'd like everyone to speak, so Mr. Klesse knows where he's headed. Whether or not he needs to come back. So who'd like to go first? All right, I'll go first. So the 2 words that came to my mind first when I saw this application was too much. Not every house in town, I realize that people want certain things in these houses, and I realize they spend a lot of money for them. But that doesn't mean every house needs to can have all this stuff. And when I look at a home like this, that's a modest home, to turn it into sort of a modern home in terms of bedrooms and upstairs laundry rooms and all these lovely accoutrements that seems to be popular today, not all houses can handle that. This is one of them. We have an undersized lot, and I realize there's a hardship in regards to that. But the request can't be then exacerbated inordinately by that in terms of having a floor area issue that actually exceeds a lot that is conforming, which is what we have. I appreciate what has been done here to reduce it down to 255. I think that's a reasonable request. And I'm trying to make this house, shall we say, more modern and more appealing. I didn't want to show my cards, but I do appreciate that there is no 3rd floor on this house. I think that's fantastic because yes, it's allowed and yes, it conforms, but by raising that ridge line 4 feet to max height, because you're 28 now, you go to 32, it does make the massing considerably less appealing. So I would support the application.
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree with your comments, Craig. I think it is a little bit of a concern in terms of how much is being put into this very small lot. I do think when you look at some of the surrounding homes, I think it could be worse depending on what the neighbors look like. But I do think that it is not a completely unreasonable request, and I think we appreciate the efforts to modify the plans to bring the FAR down. And while I'm a little bit concerned about it, I think I could be supportive of the application.
Okay, I struggled with this a lot. This is a lot of variances to request, and of course an FAR on it is a very modest home. In a modest neighborhood, I have to think that this neighborhood was probably built with the thought that it would be quaint homes on small lots, and that was what the intention was. And people have over the years built up houses in a neighborhood that I think was probably intended to be small and quaint. I am concerned about the proximity of the river. I'm concerned about this neighborhood, which floods. It has potential to flood and actually has flooded in the past. So I'm really on the fence with this because I don't want to tell you what to do. I can see some other areas you can probably carve down to get this to be more towards conforming, or at least to get it more towards conforming. So I'm on the fence. I'm anxious to hear what my colleagues say.
I'd be in favor of the application. I think you shrunk it. 4.9 is still a big number, just looking at the paper. But I think given that you took in the right side line in the back, I think that'll help with the cruise ship look. Shrinking the garage down, I think helps. It is maxing out that FAR, but I think in the end I'm still supporting it, and it brings it up the house to modern standards. And I agree with everything else that everyone so far. So far.
I'll go next.
So-
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thanks, John. When I first saw the plans on this, I said a 4-bedroom house in such a small lot, that was a big ask. As Craig mentioned, not every house or every lot in this town is designed to be a 6-bedroom, 4-bath home. The fact that you actually cut it down as we were sitting here and try to reduce that as much as you could, I think that was admirable at best. As Ashley indicated as well, we had a neighbor that came in and was complaining about the potential side, down the run on the right-hand side. And the fact that you removed that 4th bedroom definitely removes that aspect of it as well. It is a small lot, and as your planner indicated, with the housing stock and what current market does drive it at some point, what's going on in this town, it might be a situation where somebody can't buy this house, or maybe it becomes unmarketable in the future. Based on that, I would actually look to approve this.
John?
I could be supportive as well. I think I'm just looking at it from numbers perspective. There is hardship here, given that it's a smaller size lot versus what's allowable in R6. And I would just kind of handicap that starting from there, say 6,000 was the standard. If you go from there on to a 36%, I think the number comes to that 36% of that sized lot. So yes, it is a little larger, and it's reflected in the higher FAR of 5%. But from the changes that you made on the fly, I think those definitely helped me in getting over the edge here.
Thanks. So would you like to go to vote?
Please.
Can I have a motion in this case?
Move approval?
Can I have a second?
Second.
Ashley Abbott-Dorn,
Yes.
Chandra Harmony.
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
No,
Joseph Colton.
Yes.
Craig Koshaw.
Yes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, next up, we have calendar 39, 33, 23, 38 Addison Drive. Zhang Liu and Yum Yang.
Sure, this is Jing Liu, Z-I-J-I-N-G, last name is Liu, L-U.
Okay, Mr. Liu.
Thank you, committee member.
Sure. Tell us what you'd like to do tonight.
Sure, I want to tell you a story and I want your help, coronavirus. So we moved into this town about 10 years ago, and we love this little house on Addison Drive, which has a 3-bedroom, which was perfect for us back then. We had only one child. And over the years, we really enjoy the community, the neighborhood, and we so appreciate what Melbourne offered, not only the public school system, but also all the programs, especially the baseball program, from Little League to Melbourne High School baseball program. At the same time, we welcome the 2 additional boys to the family. Now we have 3 boys, all attend public school, Melbourne School, from kindergarten to rising 9th grade. We feel like the house is small to accommodate 3 boys with all the activities. And we looked at all the options in the past couple of years, what we could do with the housing market, everything like it become a reasonable solution to construct a 2nd floor on the existing house, which is like a 1-floor house. We just want to add another floor on top of that on the existing structure, foundation, and the 1st floor structure. And the reason I'm here today is there's one thing we've been really mindful working with our architect and engineer. But there's one thing is for the existing structure on the right side, the setback is in the range from 11.55 feet to 7. That's the front, and at the end is 7.6 feet. And since we want to build the house, well, we want to just add second floor on the existing structure. I'm here to ask for a relief on I'm sorry, what's the right term for that?
You want a variance?
Yeah, the variance.
And why don't you explain to the board what kind of variance relief you believe you need?
So
And by the way, sir, do you have any professionals that you're gonna present tonight? Do you
No,
have
I'm
your-
the owner, I'm doing myself.
You're just doing it yourself as the owner, so the architect is not here to testify and your engineer's not?
Unfortunately, no, he's not available.
I'll be honest with you. I have a ton of questions regarding this. Okay, and it's gonna be hard for you to give testimony regarding a architectural rendering that you did not write. So my recommendation is to get them here, okay? Because it's gonna be very hard to have a thorough understanding of what you're doing here without them telling us. And if we have to maybe compromise, it's gonna be hard for you to do that.
And also, so you have variance relief that you need, which requires you to meet certain burdens of proof with what's called the positive and negative criteria for variance relief. And you need, particularly in this case, given the number of variances and the amount of deviation per variance, you're gonna likely need professional testimony to substantiate for the board the need for that relief.
Furthermore, your lot is substantially oversized. So it's very hard, there's multiple prongs, but to have a C1 versus a C2 variance. Your C1 hardship variance is going to be difficult to prove. So, which then gets into a C2. So it's going to be extensive. So I'll give you some advice, which is something we don't normally do here.
Right.
Get your professionals.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And see when we can rehear this case.
Okay.
So I'd hate to have you have a denial with something that could be potentially explained away by your architects, or as you saw in the last case, where he says we can make some changes and appease the board.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
So when can we hear the case again? Number one, and number two, you can get back to Eileen because obviously they're not here tonight to say whether or not they're available on this particular date. I don't think it's going to be in September, right?
Oh.
Definitely not.
It's gonna be
October, right?
Oh.
So
I don't have anything.
The dance card is probably.
yeah.
It's definitely not in September.
No, it's
Four, five,
yeah,
six.
yeah 6. And it's
Halloween.
exactly. Yeah, so that day.
Yes.
I don't know what I think it is, but not.
You get on for October 16th.
So October 16th. So here's what you do: reach out to whether you're available, whether you're engineer / architect / whoever else you want to bring in is available. Please get back to Eileen as soon as possible, like this week.
16th of October. Okay.
And then we'll carry the case with no further notice. Okay.
Okay.
To the 16th of October. Like I said, please get back to Eileen as soon as possible. If they fill the professionals tomorrow, let's see if we can get back to her next day or two.
All right. Thank you. Just want to point out that that's the only variance I'm asking is the.
We have
side-
3 variances you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay. So you want them to speak to all 3.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up, we have calendar 39, 37, 23, 189 Sagamore Road, Elizabeth and Pablo Magoya.
Hello, I'm Liz Magoya.
One second. Hold on.
when they're ready.
You ready, Mr. Plessy?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna swear you both in.
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm testimony about to give tonight's hearing, give the truth, whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Your name is Sue.
Elizabeth Magoya.
Timothy Plessy.
So, hi, my name is Liz Magoya. I've been in Milburn for 23 years and formerly lived in South Mountain, moved to Sagamore Road in 2010. So we've been in the current property for 13 years. Have 2 children. They went through the Milburn school system from the time they were kindergarten to high school. They're graduated and are currently in college. We love the town. My kids love coming home for summer and holidays. And I actually just recently took a new job in Jersey City, so we are planning to stay in town. We currently have a kitchen that's a galley kitchen. That the property is a historic property, so the kitchen was in the back and is very difficult to navigate and not exactly as functional as we'd like it to be. So we thought we'd talk to Tim and see if he could create something that would be a little bit more functional for us as a family to continue living in Milburn.
Credentials, please.
Tim Plessy. I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey and New York. I've been licensed for 25 years. I've appeared before this board and many other boards. My license is presently in good standing.
Thank you. Your qualifications are accepted. Please proceed.
So this is the Magoyas at 189 Sagamore. It's R4. It's a huge lot, 55,300. Goes right up the hill, and it's only required to be 20,000. 5,500. Yeah.
55,000.
55,000. I'm trying to say and what we're trying to do is, I guess the Magoyas have decided they looked at potentially moving out of town after the kids graduate from high school. They decided they want to stay. The kids want to come back to the house. They actually like the house and they've been in it now for a long time. So they want to clean up some items on the first floor so they can really stay there. That's what's going on. So we went to the Historic Commission and received approval, and now the second half of this is to come to this board. And we're only requesting really one variance tonight. It's for side yard setback, and it seems kind of a little crazy because the existing garage is actually on the property line. And then the house that's immediately adjacent to the right is approximately 50 feet away from that property line. And I'd like to pass around a little, well, I guess it's by Exhibit 1 or Exhibit A? A1. Oh, there we go.
You got it right.
I was there. So I'd like to just send around this Exhibit A1, and I'll just show you that it's the same as what is here. It's a topo map of that the town, it's one of the town's documents.
Wait.
I'm saying this one. Am I screwing up? Kinda?
Are you going to be submitting that?
Yeah, I wanted to pass this around to let everybody look at it.
So you're marking as A1 a topographical map of
Yes,
the area in question.
yes.
Keep going.
I'm going to just send it. It's a topo map. And then I have my exhibit, which I guess I'd call A2. My actual exhibit, which is a
We'll get-
photo board and the same topo map. Sound okay? I know, it's a little confusing.
So you're passing around one copy of A1, the topo map, for the board to review. You're
Yes,
now going to be marking as A2, was it a one-sheet photo board that includes the topo map that also includes some photographs?
correct. So if you take, I'm gonna start in the upper left-hand corner here. Our addition that we're proposing tonight is right in front of the existing garage. And I just wanted you to know that the adjacent house is approximately 50 feet away. So we think that that helps to minimize the impact of this addition on the neighbors, even though it kind of sounds crazy that we're sort of building on the property line. And this, what I'm talking about in terms of the offset buildings related to the property line is actually very common on Sagamore. And it's common on Chestnut and on Linden, on some of those other streets in, what I'll call kind of the Wyoming, mostly called usually the Wyoming sort of historic district. That stuff is pushed off and they're very close to property lines. And that is occurring right here. So, and this hill is actually very steep, as I'm sure you've all seen as you kind of go up it. But that is really what our proposal is tonight. And I'm gonna flip back now to my BOA 1 sheet, which is the same as your BOA 1 sheet. And our intent, now what's happened is Sagamore is coming on a 45-degree angle, just so I guess the surveyor could get north facing straight up on the sheet. But it's really the same as what you just saw where the site was running this way. But the addition that we're proposing is in front of this garage, right there. It's about 8 foot long and it's about 6 foot wide. And if you look at the existing photos, which you have, the photo A is the front, photo B is really where the addition is going. And that door is a door into the garage now. That door is about 40 feet back off the face of the building, which is, I'm going to guess, about 70 feet to the property line, and then another 15 feet, so it's about 85. There's probably 100 and something feet to the curb from where this addition that we're talking about tonight. And it's very concealed from view. Best seen probably in this photo E, which is kind of between the two buildings, but almost impossible to actually see what's going on. And I'm going to show you another picture of this. So on my BOA 2 sheet, you can see the existing garage, which is actually on the property line. And this is the 15-foot offset of where the building is required to be. And our proposal is to add that sort of mudroom and laundry room into this sort of alleyway that's left from that door, which is right there going into the garage. And when I said it was about 8 feet long before, I was wrong. It's like 13 feet long, the building that we're talking about. But you can see from the face of the building to the face of our front porch is another 35 feet, right, to the front of the building, which is approximately 80 feet down to the street, which is uphill with a pretty good angle.
Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you help me in terms of what is the addition? In other words, the applicant testified
The addition
that
is really,
there was difficulty with the kitchen, and I'm trying to understand
We're
how this looks like a
renovating the
mudroom,
kitchen.
so.
yeah, all we're doing really, for the ask tonight, I'm gonna draw this, make it exhibit. Sorry. Okay, I'm not going.
No, it's this is your show. So I ignored the fact that you had color photos instead of black and white ones, but I can't ignore this. A3, and this is A3, which is sheet
BOA2.
BOA2 with highlighted markings.
First floor plan. So this is really the existing garage. And that's the doorway that goes into the house. The building ends presently right there, the primary building. The garage is a one-story addition that was added on at some point in time. This is really, this is a designated site. It's really, that's really the primary building A designated site just means it's important to the character of the historic district in this case. So there's actually, designated sites and non-designated sites. So when I come here, this is the area of our addition. And that's why I'm saying it's about 6 feet that way, and it's about 13 feet long. And it's really a one-story addition, so that you can walk from the existing garage into a mudroom. Then we put the laundry in that mudroom, and then we can come into the kitchen, and then we're renovating the kitchen as part of this. So the intent is to create a mudroom, laundry room, and a renovated kitchen. That's what we're doing tonight. The garage itself is remaining as is. The driveway comes all right in this way as my hand is. So that is the request. The existing garage is actually on the property line. That seems really ridiculous to me. So we pulled our addition in 6 inches, which actually is what you would do in maybe Hoboken or something, so that the footing was actually on the property line. Because, the footing projects 6 inches. So that's what we really did.
How old is the garage?
Pardon?
When was the garage constructed on that property?
I don't know.
Before we bought it, yeah.
I don't know. There's another detached building up here on the site. It's kind of dilapidated. It was a barn originally. That was probably the first. Although from the grade standpoint, it looks, you could never have driven a car up there. If you could, I guess, taken a horse up there.
It was a horse barn, my understanding, and the next door neighbors actually closed off the access to the barn. Because that's on their property, and we have a shared driveway, so we couldn't say anything about what they did with their driveway. So
I'm gonna
now we can't
I'm gonna go back to my BOA 1. And I guess what's going on is that the site came up and probably came through that 11-foot jog and came into this barn at one point in time. Because the driveway is still kind of going up that way, but that's on the neighbor's property. I guess you mean that you probably went to the neighbor's property and came back to this property to get into the barn. But I don't know when the garage was added. So, it's a one-story building, so that is, I'm on my BOA 3 sheet, and you can see the one-story building, which is a mirror of the garage roof that's beyond. All we did was send this little shed roof and married it right into the existing garage roof, which you can kind of see on this right side elevation. My roof coming across into the garage. So I'm gonna go to my 4PCs. I'm gonna go to my A2 exhibit that I started with in the beginning. This is where I'm saying that we're actually 50 feet away, even though we're only 6 inches off the property line. We had a renderer prepare a rendering for us, really for the Historic Commission. They asked us for it. And you can see our building pretty foliated. And then I had them strip the foliage and come back and put our building in. So that is actually our building added in. I really have nothing else to show you related to that, but I will tell you, I don't know if you had a chance to get up there, but this is, I think, safe to say, not visible from the road. It's high up and it's very concealed in like a little pocket.
Talk to me about the property to the right here, okay? No.
The property immediately to the right?
Yeah. Now, what's on that property?
It's a house.
Right, and where is it located on? Because
It's
you're,
approximately 50 feet away from the property line. That's what I was trying to show you with that exhibit that I sent. And I'm trying to say that to you because even though we're only 6 inch, our request is to be 6 inches off the property line, I'm saying that there's a large buffer created by the adjacent neighbor. That's what I'm really, the point I'm trying to make with that.
Tim, is that?
And that this offsetting of property lines is kind of normal in this area. And normal on the streets that go down to Wyoming. So, I'm sorry.
Is the house to the right, or I guess to the north, is that also a historic house?
Yes.
anything further?
And they're familiar with the application, the neighbors.
But it should be if you gave them notice.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I think they've actually talked, they've talked.
Yeah,
If they got their
If
mail.
they get their.
If they,
It's
the
not
people,
their mail,
no,
right.
that people usually actually call me up and say that they got a certified mail and they don't want to pick it up. Can I tell them what it is? That's what I usually get. So the request tonight is to build a one-story addition so that we can put in a mudroom and a laundry room as part of a kitchen renovation, really, that would let the Magoyas remain in the house. Okay, and that one story, the request is to be 6 inches off the property line, where the existing is actually 0 inches off the property line, although the ordinance requires 15 feet off the property line. We went to the Historic Commission on March 2nd, 2003. They were fine with the addition. Their memorializations enclosed, in your application. And I know it really doesn't have any bearing on what we're doing tonight, but we were there. And that is my, we're actually, as weird as it is, we're over on lot width. Lot width is required to be 100. We're at 114. This is really like this kind of real C1 variance related to the existing location of the building. We're way under on all of our criteria. Building coverage is only at 5.4%. Lot coverage is only at 10%. Gross floor is only at 6.6%. I mean, the lot is very, underbuilt for, but in character to all the houses. And the truth of the matter is somebody couldn't come in and tear it down anyway because the Historic Commission would probably lie in the driveway or something. You know what I mean? They'd get very worked up. So, yeah, they probably would. And it would be better if Allison was here, and I could say that to her. But that is my entire request for tonight.
Okay, any questions?
I had a question. So, go ahead.
No, you go, because I'm always one.
So what, I know the kitchen is being redone and the mudroom is being added. So in terms of what were the other locations within the lot that you were considering?
Well, we were trying
build
to at one point, I wanted to, as much as I like coming to the board, I wanted to kind of just push this
Right.
way or push this way.
Mhm.
But it seemed to be really choking this driveway part of the site, and it's a really hard driveway to get up. And this is actually the only level area to park. I don't know if.
Well, there's also
Sure,
access
but-
to the basement, right, where you would go out from the dining room. So you would have to cover up that entrance, and that's how we get like big things down in the basement, which goes through the whole bottom of the house. So it would cut off access to the basement, and there's only a very narrow door on the inside of the property, on the inside of the house that accesses the basement with like these very, very narrow creaky stairs that with tree trunks that hold up the house, because it's like 1850.
And that big entrance, where is that relative to the?
So it's on the driveway, right where that flat part is, and it's those doors
Those
that
black-
open up
the big
and
ones, yeah.
you can access. So
Right.
if we built out, you would cover that, and you take out the air conditioning, and we'd have to redo all that. But I think the biggest thing is we got to be able to access that's how you get the washer and dryer down the basement, for example.
Yeah, it's a tough stair to get down to the basement. it's tight. The house wasn't designed to have an occupied basement, these old houses. The flat area to park is what was Pablo's really, her husband's real rationale for wanting to go towards this side. Okay? Just because, and he's right, because I don't know if you've ever parked on one of those streets, it's almost like you feel like the car's gonna end up down on Wyoming Avenue. So this is really, he didn't want to minimize this flat area that we have on this site. Like on the right side of it, this is probably a 4.5 foot high wall. And then the site, goes all the way up to the lookout point, up at the reservation. So that's why, after looking at it, we sort of made the decision that it made sense to be here because it's really doesn't have an impact on the neighbor, just because of the distance.
So my question is also similar. What are the other places? Just because this is so strange to go all the way to the property line. The garage looks like it was sort of an appendage added on at some point in the past, like it was dropped from a spaceship.
Yeah.
What if you put the garage someplace else? I know that would be probably wildly expensive, but just humor me. What are the other places that this could go that you would require
you
variance
could
for
take
such
the
a-
garage, detach it, and push it into the hill. Like that would
Well, or build a
work.
new garage or something.
But you'd like sort of a attached garage. So the only way to do it is to pull the garage forward so you could get the mudroom behind it.
Mhm.
But that's part of this flat area for parking that we were concerned about removing. Only because you can't park on the street and walk up.
So is there access to the
Even when I
garage
go
from the
there,
street?
you have
So
to
is there
drive up.
access to the garage from the street? You go around? Actually,
You
just
come
couldn't
up
figure-
this way.
I couldn't figure out how you got to your
I
garage.
come
actually.
right up this way, and I come in and turn into the garage.
Ah, okay.
And this is where it becomes flat. This driveway continues on to the neighbor. Like that they
Ah,
share.
okay.
So why?
It's hard
Yeah, I
for-
couldn't figure out.
Yeah, no.
Honestly, I was like,
It's
oh,
a shared driveway.
It's on their
Okay.
property,
Oh,
but the neighbor continues on.
Okay.
So it's like really, the only real flat area I have is there, and that's why, that's why we're here tonight.
But if you move the garage to the flat area, you would have flat area. Then you could put it there.
We could slide the garage, but then we lose our flat area to park in addition.
But wouldn't you be parking in the garage if you
Well,
moved?
yeah,
it?
but
You
I
have
mean,
to
like
say-
when I come up, like I drive up there, I park, it's like a little traffic jam now. There was like, somebody was there when I was there. Annie? Somebody was there. Then she was leaving, I was coming. You can't park on the street here.
No, but a shared driveway, yes.
And you gotta clear the driveway, I
Around
guess.
because actually
Alright.
the driveway is so steep that it's very difficult to back down that driveway.
Yes, I
And
can see that.
when it snows.
Oh,
It's like,
That's exactly what I
it's like a 45-degree pitch. And you don't want to be backing down that driveway. You want to go down front ways. So
Yeah,
to turn
yeah.
around in that space, that's what we do. We use the neighbor's driveway and our turnaround space to manipulate the cars to go down forwards.
But I'm just saying that it's a case where this is the only place to park.
To that point, is there another place you could put the mudrooms and the cubbies and the things that are in that the addition? Is there any other place you could put those? If you
Well, I
left the
had
garage
them-
where it is,
Like I had them there in that corner. If you imagine, just think of this as a block, I could slide that block here, but then we were kind of running out of room here. Then we were starting to pull this way. And then as we do it, we start to encroach the only kind of grass area that you have when you come up the driveway. So I just going through it a little bit with the commission, with Barton from the commission, which has nothing to do with this. But we ended up saying that in terms of the site, this was the least de minimis location. But I know it's a push for you guys.
Okay.
Just go ahead. Have you had any communications with that neighbor that's most immediately
The
affected to
Zackies,
the
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're aware of this,
Yes,
right, through the HPC in this application?
yes.
Do they have any objection to this?
No.
Should you have a question?
It's on their driveway side, so.
Tim, just on your BOA3, where you show the side view of the proposed extension, you have like the soffit and regular roof and your leader, gutter, I guess. Is that going to be projecting over the bathroom?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Maybe
creating
that can't be
encroachment?
like that.
No, it can't.
Although the overhangs don't really count, but I don't know if you can lay an overhang. I don't know if you can put a gutter on somebody else's property.
Yeah.
Probably can't, I'd say.
It would be a trespass.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, gosh.
I guess, or maybe they gotta cut an easement deal, the neighbors. It's gonna look stupid.
Or cut your width back.
Yeah, or cut 6 more inches off.
Well, let's put it this way, you can't build on their land.
You can't.
So.
And you can't
gotta
build
figure
kind
that
of
out.
above their
You
land.
can't go over it either, so.
So you're kinda right.
Space.
You have to figure that one out.
I think it's better to know it now than
Yeah,
to put it
yeah.
up and then
No, no,
have a
no.
new neighbor come in and say, oh. we
Because
want
the
you to
property
move
line is really up to.
that. Yeah, what is that on this?
The property line is, we've set in 6 inches. So the property line is that,
The dark one?
the dark line is our building line.
Okay.
And the 2 lines to the right are the corner board of the existing garage. We're in 6 inches.
Okay, so but if those.
So
two
the
lines in
overhang is
corner board,
actually on there.
It's on the neighbor's property.
If the overhang is, it can't be there. Maybe we gotta make our building 5'6" instead of 6 feet. Because I know we want an over.
Yeah, you have to get,
It just,
just to catch the rainwater.
yeah, it's just to look good.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I, does anyone else, I don't need to hog everything. If you move your washer and dryer, could you put your mudroom in that space? I'm just trying to think outside the box how you can avoid building on so close to the property line. Because what's to say the neighbor's not gonna wanna build next to the property line, and then your house is gonna be kissing. So
Well,
what would happen if you moved that washer dryer someplace else?
yeah, I mean, we could make the mudroom narrower. We could relocate it, right? Like I
That's probably
could
easier
pull
to
it to, I mean, I guess the mudroom could be all the way down to 5 feet wide. It
Depends on how
need to
muddy you
be.
want, but
Right now, it's really 6, it's really actually like 6.4 feet. Right? If it's 6.9 to the property line, we're in 6. It could be 5 feet wide. I guess it's probably gonna have to be because the overhang can't go on the neighbor's property. You need some kind of an easement to go. It just sounds silly.
The representation to this board is that there will not be an encroachment
Yes.
from any addition that may be approved by this board onto the adjoining property, correct?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Plessy? Any questions, do you have anything else, or?
No.
No. Any questions from the audience for Mr. Plessy? Any comments from the audience? In that case, I will close the public portion of the meeting. Board members, what are your comments?
I'll go first. So first of all, what a beautiful neighborhood, what a beautiful home. I don't blame you for staying there. It's very cool, although scary with the thought about snow. I struggled on this one because I can understand the hardship of having this old home, trying to make it work with just, a modest ask. But I am personally very concerned about it going all the way up to the property line because it sort of sets precedent. And like I said in my previous comment, that if the neighbor for some reason moved in and wanted to do the same thing, then you could end up with something really odd with, and perhaps not so good to have property that's built all the way to the property line. And maybe there's some ways you can put your head together to minimize that.
I think this is a good example of a C1 variance. It's unusual to have a home that is located like this, and clearly when the founders of this town built these houses, I think the property lines are quite more blurry than they are today, as Mr. Caulfield didn't exist back then to do a proper survey. It was probably done like, is that yours? Yeah, this is mine. Okay, good, we're fine. So, taking into consideration where we are today, I get the idiosyncrasies of this lot. I mean, it's very hard to say, let's just start rebuilding things and moving, and we have a shared driveway, a shared turnaround. There's a lot going on here with this piece of property to make it work and make it livable on top of the crazy pitch of those lots over there. So as much as, increasing building on a property line isn't ideal, in order to make the house a little bit more up to date, a little bit more modern, I think I could live with this. So I would be in favor of it.
And I'll just add to that, it really is tucked away. I was there today and I don't know, I felt like I was going down this little tunnel and I was like, wait, is it here? Is it here? And you can't really see it from the street and the neighbor is very far away, so.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. And the garage is already at the property line, so it's really not
Making it work.
changing anything. So I don't have any issue with this.
The only point I would make is that I think it's if we can keep it away, as you said, like we're getting it as close or as away from the property line as is feasible to add a mudroom. I think that would be probably helpful, just because of the concerns carrying it forward with a new neighbor coming in and raising issues.
I would think that if the neighbor next door objected, then I would have qualms about it. That being said, if you keep every aspect of it clear, I would have no problem approving it either. I would think there was they probably owned the lot to the right. At some
The
point.
original house
Yeah.
it was like the parents, and then they built not to the right, to the left.
To the left.
So it was like a family
I mean,
property, the shared driveway part.
This seems to
But
be
then
this seems to be the manor house. We just based on this topo map. It seems to be the manor house that goes a couple of lots up there, because it's the biggest one there by
That vacant lot.
There's a vacant lot too. I'm not sure.
I don't know if you
history
ever
of it.
saw that, but
The public portion is
we
closed.
built a house there. We
Oh.
did a house there.
But that's.
What'd you say, the public?
Public portion is closed, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
much of us love the banter. Any other comments?
So good question. Would you consider, or is this just off the table to bring that mudroom in, or are we voting exactly as it is?
As it's
Because-
presented, with
All
it
right.
being compliant to the property lines.
Right,
correct?
okay,
No
thanks.
encroachment. Yeah, with no encroachment on the neighbor's
Right.
property.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion to open the hearing.
A second.
Second.
Go ahead.
That will force us to be at a foot.
Little what?
A
Force-
foot.
Wait, Tim, what? That will force us to what?
To we'll, instead of 6 inches, which is the request, or 0.5, we'll have, the setback it could be modified to be a foot in when you guys.
Right, the deviation's gonna go from
The
6 inches
deviation
off
will
the
has
foot.
to be 1 foot, is all I'm saying,
So-
and if that helps to address,
You'll better it by 6 inches.
yeah, to address your concern, Regina, that's all I meant by that.
Thank you.
I'll close the public portion. So in that case, is there a motion here?
I'll move approval as is.
Second.
Yes, oh, you said, sorry, yes.
Roger Harjani,
Yes.
Gary Rosen,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
No,
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Yes, good luck with the project.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, and then lastly this evening, we have calendar 394323, Joseph and Catherine Lynch at 2 Gapview Road. Come on down.
Hello, everybody. Catherine Lynch.
Come on down.
I'm not gonna be on the prices
Right.
I know.
Far Parker, stud. Please go ahead.
So, good evening. I'm here to request a variance for 609.6A, front yard fences are not permitted. To put a fence in what is really my side yard to keep my kids from running into Hobart. A little about me, we moved here about 2 years ago. I grew up in Madison. My husband and I love the town. Our girls are 2 and 4 years old. We love where we live. No
plans to move anytime soon. Can say more, but yeah, hopefully it's relatively simple request. It's a 4-foot aluminum black fence that will enclose.
Look at a state style fence, as we call them. Yeah,
Okay.
state fence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So this fence is just running down Hobart, right? It's not,
Hobart, and then
it is going up Gapview or?
it goes, yeah, so like the plan, the front right corner of the house, it'll go like here in front of the hedges that are here, and then inside the property line, inside the tree line to connect with my neighbor's fence.
Okay.
Tell me about the screening that you have there.
What does that mean? Sorry.
Like how we don't see it from the road. Trees.
Got it. Yeah, there's
foliage.
I would say there's a significant amount of trees in like on the Hobart Ave. So I think you would see it a little bit. We would like to put some more shrubs at some point, but we're starting with the fence, and then ideally put some more shrubs and trees at some point.
I think I'm gonna take you up on that.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see what you were pointing along Gapview. Is
Yeah,
it-
do you want me
is
to come and show you?
It's like a diagonal from the house.
it-
Yeah, so it's hard to see on this.
It's the blue.
So essentially, you're creating an enclosed area?
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, like this is a front yard because it's on Hobart, but it's really like the side of the house, and it's the majority of like our backyard kind of area. And so we have like a swing set here, and it's basically just creating like a safe space for the kids to, so they don't like run after a ball and to the street.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lynn, so
Yes.
if I'm looking at the survey, with the surveyor's information block on the bottom,
Mhm.
okay? It said, it looks like your property line is measured along, is that the center line of those roads, Hobart Avenue and Gapview? I'm just trying to understand the dashed line that's shaded. Does that represent?
That's the property line.
Yes.
The dash line?
They own to the center line of the property.
Dash line's the curb line.
Is that?
Dash line is the curb line. The dash line's the curb line, so that's the roadway.
Right.
Because it's the overhead lines that's right next to it, I think.
Oh, yes. OH, yep. So I think what you're saying is that the like shaded area is the road.
The shaded area is
Yes.
the road, that's that's part of the cartway of those roadways,
Yes.
correct?
And how far is this new? So we're looking at the highlighted line is what I'm talking about. So our spots here.
Okay, yeah, yes.
How far is that coming from the
I didn't get
curb line?
It's probably about 10 to 15 feet. Because you have to
Right, so
go
make sure it
through,
doesn't go
probably
right.
even more, you have to go through from the road all the way like through the trees inside the tree line.
Right. And then this blue line, what does that represent?
Which one is blue on yours?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Diagonal.
The diagonal.
That's a fence. That's like the front part
So
of
it's
the
gonna
fence,
be
so
on-
like encloses the,
Right.
and then I can show you, sorry, I didn't bring a copy, but like a photo, there's hedges that are kind of like in the front yard, basically right here. So like, there's
When you
hedges.
say, Ms. Lynch, when
Yeah,
you
so it'd be
refer
behind.
to it as right here, because we're making a
Oh, yeah,
record,
sorry. In the,
describe it with verbal, please.
to the right of the house in the front yard, there's hedges that the fence would be then behind. And the fence would also go behind a very large tree that is also to the right of the house in the front yard.
So how visible given that foliage, how visible do you think it would be from the street?
It'll be visible.
From which street?
It'll be
Gap
more
View.
visible from Gapview
Yeah.
than from Hobart.
Okay, that's Front Street, okay, that's what I was.
So I'm trying to get my head around the aesthetic of that fence running at that angle. Why not straight off the edge of the house?
It does.
I mean, I realize it's going to limit your yard,
Yeah.
that triangle-ish thing, but the aesthetic of that's going to be funky.
I would love to show you the hedges because it's kind of like, and I agree, I hear you. I don't really love the idea of having like a very sharp angle. And so there is a world where we could make it more curved. The fence guy is like open to, once we lay out
posts, we can like curve it instead of doing a sharp angle. But the hedges are kind of, can I just pull up my iPhone real quick?
You can. Problem is, you're gonna have a hard time submitting those.
Yeah,
You
it's
gotta
not,
turn- you gotta
it's not
submit your
gonna be part
iPhone.
of the record.
Yeah, it's not part of the
Okay,
record.
well,
I think you're just gonna have to describe it.
Yeah.
okay. To the right of the front of the house, there's like a tree in the front yard. Then there's like a very large tree that is even closer to the house inside of Gap View. And then there's hedges that are offset at an angle that are probably like 15 feet of hedges. So it's not as like an aggressive of an angle. It's kind of, it is following where the tree is and where the hedges are.
So the idea is like, you don't want it to look odd from the street.
Totally.
And at the same time, we don't really want to plant a diagonal line of plants across your front yard.
Yes.
Your side yard, because that also would look bizarre.
Mhm.
So the trick is to screen this thing so that it doesn't look strange,
Mhm.
yet at the same time isn't, super visible.
Mhm.
And I'm not really sure how to put that into a.
Well, so what if you just made a right angle? See, we're on this document
Where it says
says
100.46.
100.46.
Yeah.
Have it
It
line,
just
and it does
cuts,
cut down the space a
like,
bit, but it
probably like quite significantly. If you look at this whole triangle, it's not a small amount of space. It really cuts off almost the whole, like a large part of our play area space of the yard. Like we had, if you have a bouncy castle for a birthday party, like you couldn't really fit one. Not that that's a criterion for, a variance, but but like it just
quite a bit of space
it's
there.
like you have space,
Yeah.
but
um
because otherwise, to Craig's point, I think it's going to look funny.
Like I said, I would be in favor of squaring it off to the house, the forward edge of the house. And then, of course, then that would reduce the amount of fence along Hobart as well.
Right.
Which I think would be a win also, from my perspective. Yet still give you a yard that's more secure. This is sort of the issues of living on a corner lot. On top of that, Hobart's busy.
yeah.
But at the same time, that's why fencing corner lots is always a tough thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't really know that until now, but
Yeah.
I
So
totally understand. Doesn't matter what my neighbors have done, or can I share that?
well, I'll be honest with
this
you.
group?
I'm familiar with the street.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's hard to say what if someone else is violating zoning code as justification for more violation of zoning.
Oh, got it.
I'm not sure you want to use that argument.
No, definitely not.
So, and whether those other fences lawfully exist or not, I mean, you're more than welcome to dime them out and call Eileen and say, I'd like you to look into their permits that they. I don't know if Eileen wants that.
My neighbor does have a permit. They just got a fence. They had a permit.
Right.
By the way, dime them out of circa 1977.
Sorry.
And then the one next to me, 123 Hobart, has a full fence on the street.
Yeah, they do. And that house, that's an old house. It's been around forever, but it's probably, and the one next to it, probably 1800s. And that has a full fence, even though it's a small decorative one, but
Yeah.
it does.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, yours was not one of them. So, as you can see tonight, sometimes these applications become a little bit of a give and take.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and I'm only, once again, one voice, but I would like to see this where we square it off at the house and bring back the amount of fence on Hobart, but I'm one opinion. So, since you're the only one here, let the record show that there is no one else in the audience this evening, so public comment or question.
May I make one other comment real quick? There
Sure.
might be a tree issue with the squaring it off of the house, because if I'm looking at the photo, which I guess I should have taken some photos and brought them with me. My apologies. Yeah. Oh, you see it. Yes. So that was also probably one of the reasons we are trying to cut behind that really big tree, line it up with those hedges that are in front, and then go along the full tree line. There probably is a way to do it without having a sharp, there is a way to do it without having a sharp angle. So I could make it more in line with the hedges.
Probably we need to see that drawn out,
I know, yeah, we need to see the drawing.
you know,
Okay,
we're trying to work with what we got here.
totally.
So I think the issue for me, like my colleagues, is this angle here. Not that it's a sharp angle, because if we're a 90-degree angle, just from what we can see here, it would probably be more in line with what we're used to seeing in other neighborhoods. But I hear your point. I would say this is probably more permanent than the trees, even in the shrubs, because they tend to come and go as they have a limited lifespan, usually, trees and shrubs. Whereas the fence, once it's approved, if it's approved, it could be there as long as the house is there.
I just, if you don't mind, do we have a couple of red marks on this too? Is that also fencing?
Actually don't have,
No.
sorry, any colors on mine.
So the red marks were for me, I was showing her where she could legally put it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, without a
That's-
variance.
that's-
Without a
that's what
permit.
my
I
question
wanted
was.
to.
Or without a
It's like
variance.
You have red on yours? Okay.
Yeah, I read on
Yeah.
mine as
So the
well.
body was tracked, yeah.
But you would want to ask about, so yeah, right.
Just looking at this picture, I don't think that the tree would.
Actually, with,
Excuse me, okay. You know, okay, yeah, it's hard to tell a little
It
bit.
doesn't look to me like it would be in the way.
What Mr.
You
Simon
know,
was
one
saying
behind
earlier,
and
as
one
far
in
as the width of Hobart Avenue, you're proposing putting this on your boundary line, right?
What is the boundary line? Sorry.
It's gonna be 25 feet from the center line. You have an iron pin there. So essentially your boundary is where the yellow is.
Oh, that's where the boundary is?
Your boundary is, I mean, there's a public right of way into half of the right of way, a public easement over the right of way. So you're kind of in here. Your deed will probably describe it to the center line, but there's, the public has an easement over 50-foot wide Hobart Avenue.
Okay. And so this is too close to there?
Well, I mean, just so you know, you're putting this on your boundary line, so you have to be 25 feet back off the center line.
Okay.
There's actually, you see an iron pipe here.
Okay.
Right, you're gonna, right, so the reality is, as Jim said, you're gonna have to push this further away from Hobart Avenue a bit. And with regard to even if the board was amenable to your proposal of the angle of the fence along Gapview Road, due to the distance from the center line, I don't see actually, if you look up to the top, you see there's a bar, cap bar set.
Gaffney's also a 50-foot right of way, so there's 25.
Lower right-hand corner, you'll see another iron pin.
Where's
Along
that?
Hobart Avenue, iron pin on
An iron bar
iron bar.
right there, you see the, right on the top.
Oh, it's not marked, but it's there.
You
Okay.
have- you have-
Yeah, there's no words. but
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just-
yeah. Right, right.
Okay, yeah.
So
Do you-
that's
do you
the
have words
point,
on
that it's
yours?
gonna probably be, that would even be pushed in
Yeah,
anyway.
oh, but there's,
as a
it
matter
doesn't
of
say.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
Oh, it
pull
says
anyway.
pipe, okay.
The
Iron
fence.
pipe.
Pipe,
So
okay.
meaning, in from where the, like, more,
Towards the house. You have to
Towards
work
the
it
house.
You gotta
towards the house.
move it towards
do you
the
have a
house
sense
both
of
ways.
how,
I think that the whole point is whether we're doing it by accident or on purpose, straightening out that fence line
Mhm.
is probably what you would have to do anyway.
from Hobart and Gapview?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like very small amount of fenced in area.
Yeah.
And that's beyond our control.
That's what you can legally
Legally
do.
do versus.
That we cannot even grant you relief for.
Which part?
That you can't encroach over your property. In other words, you can't encroach into the right of way.
And that's 25 feet from the center line of Hobart Avenue.
Yes.
Okay. I think this is 20, I mean, obviously we would measure it.
I mean, the pipe says it's 25 feet, okay, but it
Yeah.
says from the center line.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yes, there you go.
right, because you see on the right
Yes, I see
corner
it
of
now,
it, the
thanks.
iron pipe is 25 feet from the center line.
Mhm.
So you want to come on the inside of that.
Okay,
So
like
We don't
incremental from
have-
what the plan
There's a
shows.
pipe on Gapview, though, we don't know where that would end up. Where would it end up on Gapview, though, if you were looking at the boundary line?
Well, if you look at the top.
yeah, if you look at the
property
top,
line, it shows you
Okay,
where-
it would drop down from there,
And you just have to draw that line.
drop it down. Okay, so it'd bring that oblique angle down a little bit.
Okay, I see, yeah. So even, it would have to be curved or straightened, like,
it's kind of interesting how they measured that top pipe because they measured it on an angle,
Mm-hmm.
not
It
straight,
is.
Right.
in the center line. But I mean, that it follows the property line.
Right, that makes no sense. Yeah.
You could do a curve there.
Yeah, so, but, you know, like I said, I like to hear from my other members. Do you have any more testimony regarding this?
Just trying to make it work for like safety purposes, basically, and not have it be an eyesore. Obviously, I love the town and have no intent of doing anything crazy or, you know, I'm here because I want to do it the right way.
Sure. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close the public portion. Okay, we're gonna deliberate. And
There's no one here to ask questions.
as I mentioned, yeah, for the record.
No one wanted to.
Right.
That's it.
And then, you know, it's either come down to whether or not, I'll ask you if you want to proceed with a vote, okay? If we make a recommendation,
Yeah.
okay, and we vote on that recommendation, it's kind of what you get.
Great.
Okay, so in that case, I'll close the public part. Are there any questions?
I just had a question for Eileen. So there are two dotted red lines. Are those the permitted lines that could be
That's where she would be able to do a fence without needing a variance.
without? Okay, and those are basically that's the back end of the
That delineates where the front yard starts on Gapview and Hobart.
right.
That would be considered where she would-
So with the fence with the neighbor on this side and those two red dotted lines, that would be an enclosed area too. That's an option, but without coming to the board. I mean, you don't.
That's as of right.
That's
Correct.
as of
Right,
right.
got you.
Yeah. In that case, what comments do board members have?
So I'll go first. I would support if on the Gapview side, it ran along the house on the 100.46 line and then hit the Hobart fence side. But I wouldn't be supportive of how it is now at that angle cutting across the front there.
I agree.
I would even consider a curve because I think curves are lovely and
Me too.
interesting, and there's a lot of cool architecture in this neighborhood, and every house is different. So I don't know if this is something the board would consider, but instead of this sharp, 70-degree angle that it is, if that could be like a curve, and that might be more attractive from the roadside, but accomplish your goal of preserving some square footage of your side yard, because I did observe that you have a lot of areas, the front of the house is not really usable for play area, nor is the area where the macadam drive is. So just something, I would be in support of either a nice curve there. And I don't even know if your fence maker can make a curve.
No, I actually, may I make a comment?
No, actually, the public portion is closed,
Oh.
so.
Oh, I'm, okay.
Oh, sorry about that. I should have asked this
Oh,
earlier.
yeah,
then. Apologies. Or I would be in support of either the 100.46, but I would be, I don't even know how I would draw that, just a curve rather to make that less, that angle less, and that would be attractive, I would say. So either one of those I would be in support of.
I can't talk anymore at all.
Well, at this point, I'll open back up to the public. So I have a motion to open.
I have a motion.
Sorry, I wasn't aware, I didn't know that meant I was like the public. I thought that meant like the
No, it's-
other people who
Okay.
were here.
Any testimony on the board?
Got it,
Go ahead.
okay, my apologies. Testified in different situations and different things, but not this before. The fence person originally had the curve. And I was like, oh, let's just simplify it and make it like easier for everyone and whatever. So it is possible. They can do different angles and because they're like, square portions of a fence and they can move them around. So that is possible. I love that suggestion. That would,
Okay. Once again, I'll close the public portion. We'll see if anything else you'd like to ask. You good? Okay. Any other comment? I'd rather see it squared off along 100.46 line to Hobart Ave. Without seeing a proper representation of this curve, I definitely would need to see that drawn out and exactly how it would represent on the property. So I would not be amenable to something that's not in front of me.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Point of order. So if she were to withdraw this and give it back to us and whenever the next opening was with the curve, if that meant a lot to you, that would be possible.
That would absolutely be possible.
Okay, so it depends on.
But like
how
I
much-
said, I mean, you
But
know,
it-
at this
but it might
point,
not be
that's not,
approved.
that's not in front of us.
It's not in front of us.
So,
That's
so
right.
I'm not,
Got it. Yeah,
I'm
that's,
not willing to comment on
fair
something
enough.
that's not in front of us.
thank you.
So, I mean, I maybe I heard that coming along, perpendicular on 100.46 there was a tree, I think is what
Potentially, I would have
I
to
don't
check.
think so.
But I was thinking that if that's not the case, then I think you probably take 98.72 line. I think that sort of gives a little bit more aesthetic coming perpendicular to Hobart is my view as well. Curve again, can't comment on it unless you see it. So
Right.
pretty much.
So I'm gonna give you a shot here. We can vote as you've heard, okay? You can come back with a whole other plan. And that's up to you if you wanna do that. But it will be for a while, as you know, we're rescheduling out. But, if you do come back, it has to be an exact representation of what you may or may not do. You've heard that one person's in favor of it, but there's no guarantee that anybody else will. So, that's where you stand.
And I don't think any board member spoke favorably as to the application as currently presented.
Correct.
And may I ask a procedural question?
Absolutely.
So if it does go to a vote and gets denied, then then do I,
So you
can I reapply or is it closed forever?
Well, that's what gets complicated. So
Okay.
if you don't have anyone right now who has verbally indicated their support for what's been submitted.
Mhm.
If you said, well, I'm still want to vote, and the board voted it down,
Mhm.
and you came back in 3 months and you proposed the curve, for
Mhm.
example, and all you did was sort of curve it off and stay right inside that right-of-way line,
Mhm.
well, then the board may have a different consideration, which is this application that different than one we already denied? And then you would fall into what's called the doctrine of res judicata collateral estoppel, where the board may say, you know what, there's really not much of a difference
Mhm.
here, and so therefore, we're not even gonna hear you, Ms. Lynch, because on procedural grounds, we're forbidden from reviewing this application as revised, because it's not revised enough. So I think if I can speak freely, the strong recommendation based on what I'm hearing from the board is for you to get a new date, and you're not asking for a vote or anything, and then go back and decide how you want to proceed based on the thoughtful comments that were made by all the board members. Or what?
Or pull the fence back to 100.
Yeah, I mean,
or something else.
right. I mean, if you'd like us to move forward with the vote, it sounds like the 100.46 line is going to get you a green light. If you want to roll the dice and come back, you can do that too, and have your case carried. It's your call.
Yeah.
But I would recommend, if you do come back, bring some illustrations,
Yeah.
bring a photo board, do that type of stuff, so everyone can really understand. If you do try to go for this rounded thing, that it's really understand where it's going to go, how it's going to go through your landscaping and everything else.
Okay.
So with that, what would you like to do?
Well, it's probably gonna be a few months from now, right? I think I've spent enough time on the fence, honestly, in my life at this point. Yeah, let's just vote for the 100.46 line.
Okay, so in that case, is there a motion to square the fence off the 100.46 line, which would be parallel with Gap View Road and equal to the corner of the home?
I'll make a motion.
I can second.
Is that Sean Booth?
Yes.
Ashley Alexander?
Yes.
Sean Booth?
Yes.
Gary Roseman?
Yes.
Virginia Sherwood?
Yes.
Joseph Colton?
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, have a good night.
Take care.
I live in a house.
Is there anything the audience would like to discuss that's not been on the docket this evening? Let me know for the record that there is no one in the audience. With that, I would accept a motion to end this whole thing.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Good night, everyone.